Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Maverick News channel. What an exciting day today. Canada announcing the launch, if you will, of a spaceport out in Nova Scotia. Really exciting stuff, I have to say. Canada's launching its own network of satellites. We are going to be doing that. And also, now we're going to get a spaceport that we will use to collaborate and coordinate and work with partners from other countries to begin launching space vehicles into outer space and doing spacey things. It's all about sovereignty, and it's about national security and the economy, but we're not really going to dig into that too much tonight. As exciting as I found all of that to be today, I just thought, wow, that's incredible. Now all that brain drain that's been heading down to, Cape Canaveral and Houston, all that Canadian know-how, all that educated brain mass can stay right here in Canuckistan, and we can grow that whole end of the industry. So it won't just be a collaboration on the U.S. side anymore. It'll be up here in Canada too, and there are a whole bunch of reasons for that. But we'll maybe dig into that in a little bit more depth in maybe tomorrow night or maybe the night after. I have so much stuff going on tonight, though. We may touch on that a little bit more, but we have a special guest here, a friend of the channel, Brandon Pringle from out in Alberta. And of course, you may recall that Brandon is, I think he's an advocate for Alberta separatism, and we give everybody a voice here. And so when we come back, Brandon will, I'm not exactly sure what it is he wants to talk about tonight, but he contacted me and said, hey, I'd like to come on and talk about some things. So I said, well, okay, bring it on over and we'll have the conversation. So that begins on the other side of this.
Maverick News isn't just a news outlet, it's a community of truth seekers. Your donation at freedomreporters.com fuels our mission to report the stories that mainstream media won't touch. Thank you, Maverick family.
All right, let's bring our guest for the evening in. And there he is. Hello, Brandon. Welcome back.
Hey, Rick. Great to see you. Great to see you. And just so everybody out there, I haven't worn out yet my Trump fight shirt yet. And I've a little bird told me Rick still has some for sale, and that isn't going to be an iconic piece of history. So get yourself one of those shirts before they're all gone.
Actually, I was thinking about something else that it's become sort of iconic. This apple.
Oh
yeah. You know why? Because I was thinking of what's the one video that comes to mind when I hold up an apple?
I don't know why, but I just think of like the Mac apple. I know it's got a bite out of it, but
no. Well, there's the Garden of Eden too, right?
Yeah, of course,
which is very sinful. But no, I was thinking about the Polyev video with him eating the apple.
Oh,
yeah. Anyway,
right. I remember. Yeah, that was a classic moment, wasn't it? Yes.
Anyway, it was just sitting there.
Yeah, that was very good. Actually, that's
what's your favorite kind of apple?
Oh, my favorite kind of apple. Honeycrisp. Honeycrisp are pretty good.
Yeah, they're very good. Yeah, they grow Honeycrisp at a place called Delhaven Orchards, not far from here.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like them, but I can't eat too many of them because they're so sweet. So I do buy Honeycrisp sometimes, but these are galas, and they're just a little less sweet. So
Yes.
I find that I can eat a ton of these if I want
Hmm.
to. But
I
anyway,
can't remember. It's a crab apple. I can't remember what the name of it is, but they're not like the size of those real tiny crab apples. They're about maybe twice the size of a golf ball,
okay.
and they have yellow flesh, and so they've got a little bit of tang to them.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like sweet and sour. So those my parents used to have one of those trees, so I really like those too.
Yeah.
I wish they don't sell crab apples in stores. Really, just not
Yeah.
big enough, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if there's much demand for a crab apple, but
Right?
yeah, galas are popular around here, and Honeycrisp,
Yes. Yeah, they're very
Macintosh,
popular out here too. Yeah,
yeah,
they're
Red
very
Delicious.
popular out
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
So anyway, you sent me a message, well, a couple of weeks ago now, and said you'd like to come on to talk about some stuff.
Hmm. Yes.
And so I don't know what prompted you to do that. I'm thinking that maybe John gave you a call, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. How
Maybe
is he
prompted
doing?
you to do.
I sent him a
Don't
text,
know.
but I haven't heard from him yet.
Haven't haven't talked to John in a while, so I really don't know. But I
Yeah,
hope
I'll
he's
have to.
okay. Have you
Yeah.
spoken to him?
No, I haven't. I've called him a couple times. So um yeah, so yeah, I'll definitely be. And so in the off chance that you're gonna see this later, Rimby John, shout out to you there, buddy. Speaking of which,
Hmm.
one of your regular guests from Detroit, he was dealing with some health issues. How's he
Oh,
doing?
Joseph.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
how's he doing?
Oh, I think he's doing well. Yeah, he's been on the
Oh,
program 2 times, 3 times in the past month or so. We
outstanding.
reviewed a couple of movies. We reviewed Wuthering Heights about a week ago.
Oh,
So
outstanding.
that was fun. Yeah. So he's doing okay.
Yeah, I did feel like I needed to reach out to you, Rick, because I there's so much there's so much, well, I hate to say it, but basically fake news going on about the whole referendum in Alberta right now. And I think that people would be a lot happier if they knew that, if they knew a lot of the truth actually that's going on. And it's pretty hard too, because I don't know how many people know the name of a Canadian senator named Paula Simons.
Hmm. Yeah.
Have you heard of her?
I know the name. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was doing an interview on the radio in Edmonton about a month ago. And I printed off the one of the things about what she said on the radio. And
Okay.
this is what she said, well, I think, to be blunt, and I will be blunt, that a lot of the emotion that's driving the Alberta Prosperity Project is ugly. It's not about making an argument about access to tidewater and pipelines. It's frankly xenophobic. It's racist. It's misogynist. It's anti-woman. It's about taking Alberta back to some kind of imaginary 1950s world of women barefoot, pregnant, in the kitchen. I think it's virulently transphobic and homophobic. And well, I mean, there's no point in wasting any more time on that kind of stuff. But it just goes to show you that this is the kind of things that are out there, and even what we should think as reputable news organizations are putting out this kind of stuff. And quite frankly, they don't even know actually what motivates the average Albertan. They don't know the real story. They don't know why Albertans have concerns.
Well, Paula Simons, she was a journalist, I think, in Edmonton,
right,
prior
right.
to becoming a Canadian senator.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, as being a member of the press, of all people, she should know better than that kind of stuff. So, I mean, and this is what we have to deal with usually out here in Alberta. I mean, it's just so, like, if you look at the population makeup in Alberta, I mean, it's very, very. I mean, just about every culture is out here, and they're happily blessed. And my son-in-law, for crying out loud, is, well, I want to say Indian, but that's not quite totally correct. His way back heritage is India. But what happened was, because Trinidad Tobago was part of the British Empire, a whole bunch of people from India ended up coming over to Trinidad Tobago. So for 100 years, that's where his ancestry came from. Mm-hmm. And then eventually his mom moved from Trinidad Tobago to Canada, and wouldn't you know it, eventually he meets our daughter in Alberta, and now they're happily married. So the idea that there's racism in Alberta is just so, like, beyond the pale. I mean, what's his name? Jordan Peterson actually was in an interview a while ago, and he says, like, the latest election and people throwing out this idea of white supremacy in Canada, he's like, that's not even a thing. So, like, yeah, is there bad people all over the planet? Yes, of course there are. But we don't have that kind of stuff here. And one or two bad apples don't get the privilege of speaking for the 5 million Albertas that love immigrants and love every part of the human race. So, but I think that
so you're what, advocating for immigrants? Is that where you're going with this?
Well, absolutely. I mean, my background is Scottish and German. My grandfather came over from Germany in 1927. He was 17 years old. He was the youngest Class A miner in Canada. The difference, though, I think, for my grandfather, for example, he lived right beside a Russian fellow. And the Russian fellow, they would get into these conversations, and the Russian guy would go on and on about how amazing the old country was, and so much better than Canada. And my grandfather was of the opinions like, well, if you think it's so great, then you should go back. And he was German, like in Canada, and he didn't have the most, like, perfect Canadian experience, if you will, like, because he was German in World War II, and he was a coal miner in the Crow's Nest Pass. He didn't get sent to the front lines or deported because he was a coal miner, and they were of absolute critical necessity. And so, but he still, on his way home to work every day, he had to check in with the police station. And he just accepted that as a reality of the day and age. And he loved Canada very much, and he really had no desire to go back. Finally, his son paid for him to take a trip over to Germany, just to visit it, to see the sights and stuff like that. But other than that, he was so grateful for Canada, and so blessed by Canada. And the difference between my grandfather and what started to happen during the Trudeau era is that when people came to Canada, then it was encouraged by the government to become Canadian, not come to Canada and just be whatever country that you came from and try to implement that here. I mean, if if the country you came from was so amazing and so awesome, well, then it stands to reason that you wouldn't leave. So then if you're coming from a country and you're trying to have a better life to come here, it just doesn't make any logical sense to me that you would try to come somewhere and then change the better country to where you came from. And so the biggest problem with immigration is that mass immigration, like a nation functions extremely well when all the services, the police, the fire, the hospitals, all these things train people to fill those positions as the population grows. That's what makes sense. But if you looked at how with the mass immigration that's coming, it's overwhelming our hospitals, it's overwhelming our healthcare system. I mean, I've printed off a bunch of these documents. CTV just did a story not too long ago that 23,000 people died last year waiting for surgeries. And
nationwide,
yeah, just last year. Since
I don't think that's okay. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Since 2018, it's 100,000 people have died waiting for surgeries, and the Liberal government has sent $23 billion to Ukraine. Now, this is a problem.
Well, hang on. Okay, back up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. What question you got for me?
23,000 people died, but I don't know if you're phrasing that accurately.
Yeah, they died waiting for surgery.
Okay.
So they were on a list waiting for surgery.
So they died while on a waiting list for surgery.
That's right. Yeah.
What did they die from?
It doesn't say. It doesn't say. It just says they died waiting for surgery. But if you look at the number of people that have died, it's 100,000 people
right.
that have died.
And what did they die from?
The story from Second Street doesn't say. It just says they died waiting for surgery.
Well, that's kind of an important point, isn't it? Because see, what I'm seeing there is, as you say that, just because they're on a waiting list for surgery doesn't say what they died from. Do you understand?
No. Yeah, absolutely.
Did they die because they were on a waiting list for surgery? No, not necessarily.
No, but
so that's leading people to believe that they died because they were waiting for surgery, but that's not necessarily the case.
That's true.
It's very true. And in fact, see, if you look at it, just because you're on a waiting list to have your hip replaced, that means you're elderly, which means you may have died of a heart attack that had nothing to do with the waiting list you were on waiting for surgery.
The reason why I believe that there's a very strong case to be made that it's partly true, it's not 100% true, is
what is it? What's true? What's the point of?
Well, the point that it is true. Absolutely, what you're saying, it is true that people dying waiting for surgery. Okay, they died waiting for surgery. Now,
they died waiting. They died waiting for surgery, but it doesn't mean they died because they were waiting for surgery.
If you read the article from it doesn't say the reason they wrote the article was to bring awareness to the thing that these numbers are like way outside the average historical norm. So 23,000 people, when the Liberals sent $23 billion to Ukraine, it doesn't make any sense that you have a 23,000 people.
What does two separate things? And because also healthcare is a provincial responsibility.
Yes, but the government.
So blame it. I mean, how many people died on waiting lists for surgery in Alberta?
That I did not look that up. I just know what's happening across the country because, in my opinion,
healthcare is a provincial responsibility.
Somebody that dies in Ontario, their life is just as important as somebody's life that dies in Alberta. Yeah. So
that's why here in Ontario, our Conservative government has made some changes to the healthcare system. In fact, just speaking of hip surgery, which my father just went through, hip replacement, they've made changes, which actually Angie Clowry, who was on the program, highlighted this. I don't know if she intended for it to bring this. She probably wasn't thinking of it in these terms, but I don't think she had all the information. I wasn't even aware. But here in Ontario, they've taken steps in the last year and a half. I think it was just started to come in the end of last year, where they've introduced more private clinics to offer services, hip and knee replacement surgeries here in Ontario. And as a result of that, it opens up space, and we're actually taking patients from Western Canada out here to fill the void for some of the people who want faster service. And so they can actually pay a fee to then have their surgery performed out here if they choose to do that, availing themselves of a private healthcare stream here in Ontario, while still making sure that Ontario surgeries as needed are prioritized for people. So I wasn't even aware that this was happening, but that's something I've advocated for a really, really long time. For decades, I've said we need more integration and hybridization of public and private healthcare systems. And that's exactly what Doug Ford is doing out here. And that has made a big difference. It's reduced wait times. It is reducing wait times. It's even picking up, some of the demand in some Western provinces, including British Columbia, because the reason Angie mentioned it was because a friend of hers came to Ontario to have surgery performed. So after that broadcast where she mentioned it, I went and I started to look up the information. And indeed, that is something that began to come in to effect here in Ontario within the last year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of changes have been going on out here that have made huge improvements, even in wait times for emergency rooms in this province that I can tell you about, that I've personally been through. In addition to that, my dad, speaking of waiting lists, he's 94 years old. We've been talking to him on the program from time to time about his experience going through the healthcare system. And I'm so grateful because 94 years old, and while everybody's saying that the Canadian government wants to kill everyone, they made this surgery available to him, no problem. And he was in within I think it was about 4.5 months is all the time that he had to wait, even at 94.
Yes.
And he's doing extremely well. I went and I stayed up in London with my parents for, much longer than I probably needed to, because he was up and around and ready to run a marathon within, a few weeks. And he's back up and fully functional. And I went to see the doctor with him a couple of times, and the doctor said, "No restrictions. You heard it from me." And indeed, he's just like back up and at him. And he just went and got his driver's license renewed last week. Brandon?
Oh, praise God. Yeah. That is so.
Isn't that amazing?
That is absolutely amazing, because driver's licenses are so critical, because you see a lot of elderly people start to go downhill.
Oh, yeah.
When they can't leave the house, right? When they can go places and do things, it's very important for their mental well-being.
Sure is. Freedom.
Not just their physical well-being, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah. I was concerned, because 94, but he passed with flying colors. My mom, she can't drive because of her eyes. But my dad still can. So they get out and about and they're back out doing their grocery shopping on their own. They're independent again. And I'm so incredibly grateful.
So good.
I can't tell you how good the care was that he got, and truly amazing.
Yeah, no question. There's some very, very, very good stories. I mean, we had a family member in a snowmobile accident not too long ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a miracle um, that that he didn't die. Actually, he was getting pulled on a skidoo and he hit a pole
Mm-hmm.
and head first. So didn't have it. So they just took very good care of him at um, uh, the Alberta Children's Hospital, and he had 5 surgeons working on
Yeah.
him, and a number of. They first said he wouldn't be out for 3 months, and now they're saying he might be out for a month, and all the surgeons are coming down and saying they want to meet the miracle kid because we were praying so much for him. And yeah, so that's a really good story. So yeah, no question, there's some very good stories.
Yeah.
But
And what did they charge him for that? Probably zero.
Yeah, zero.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
absolutely.
with my dad. $0. In fact,
Yeah.
you know what the most expensive thing was at
Mm.
University Hospital in London, Ontario? The parking.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I was amazed even at that. I think it cost me like $7 or something to park.
Right.
I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I thought if it was downtown Toronto, it'd be $1,000 or something for a half hour. But
Yeah.
no, it was like $7 or $8
Yeah.
to park. So I had to go up there a few days, and yeah, I think the whole bill for parking probably came to like $24 or something over 3 straight days. So that was pretty amazing in itself. It blew me away. There are a lot of things about the healthcare system that I've criticized over the years, and I think it still has some shortcomings and needs improvements in some areas. But I have to give credit where credit is due, and our Ontario provincial government here making huge strides forward. I think every province has some different experiences in that regard, but I'm so grateful for this particular experience anyway.
Yeah, well, no question. I mean, like it's kind of a I don't know what the right terminology is to use here, but um provinces can only do as much as um it's really important that uh that I mean, if you're going to send $23 billion to Ukraine, you should be looking at all the people on medical wait lists and making sure that they're taken care of first. I guess that's my main point. And um, for every good story,
I'm not sure
there's
what
an
the 23 billion to Ukraine has to do with healthcare specifically, and I think the 23 billion you're referring to, it's a little more complex than just a straight up 23 billion dollars, because as I understand it, a lot of that money is actually directed toward loan guarantees. So it's not actually straight up money. What it means is that as Ukraine makes purchases or procures weapons or other things needed for the war. And I think actually the money in Canada's case is earmarked for infrastructure, specifically for like rebuilding things like hydro lines, like electricity lines and things like that, and power infrastructure that's been blown up by the Russians. And so that money, as I understand it, a lot of it, if not all of it, is actually loan guarantees, which means that Canada backs it up. It's like, co-signing for a loan. And if Ukraine defaults on it, then Canada says we'll make good on it. So I'm sure that Canada has, I know we have sent some money over there, but it isn't as simple as straight up money. And it's not always right off the top either. So just a little more complex than that.
Yeah, I just think though that like if you really care about so if you look at the historical average for people dying on waiting lists is about 4,000 people a year. So if you go from 4,000 to average 4,000 a year to 100,000 over we'll say 8 years, that should be, and then you add we live right beside the states. Like let's say of the 23 billion that the Liberals sent Ukraine, let's just say only 10 billion of 13 billion of it was for infrastructure and other things, and 10 or even 5 billion was cash, for example. You could have given a lot of, you could have cut down those waiting lists.
You could pick, Brandon, you could pick any other expenditure and say that they should spend it here or spend it there. And these are budgetary issues, and you're taking two separate issues and, you know, saying that one is virtuous and the other is not. This one's worth something, this one's worth nothing, and then making an argument that way, when in fact these are two separate sets of arguments, and it becomes a budget issue, and that's something that people, you know, ultimately would go and vote for. Now, as far as the waiting list is concerned, you know, I agree that more could be done to, I guess, reduce wait times for various kinds of surgeries. But even within that, sometimes those wait times are not just related to budgetary issues. They're related to logistics and demographics and geography. It depends on a lot of different things. I know that, you know, for instance, here in Ontario some time ago, when I was working at CTV, there was a big issue here with long waiting lists for heart surgeries in Ontario.
Right.
Yeah. Huge waiting lists, and people were dying on the waiting lists because they couldn't get heart surgery. And that was, you know, that was back in like the 90s, right? Yeah. And so there were a lot of issues surrounding that. And one of the issues that came to the surface there was lack of doctors. They didn't have enough doctors to perform enough surgeries. Yes. It wouldn't have mattered necessarily how much money they threw at it. And one of the reasons we had a shortage of doctors really began to become a problem in Ontario when the Peterson Liberal government in Ontario capped doctors' wages. Right. And people, that became a big election issue. That's what Peterson actually was propelled to office, why he won the provincial election in Ontario in that time.
Right.
And then as a result of, people said, yeah, screw those rich doctors, cap their wages. Let's get these healthcare costs under control. We're spending too much money and it's too wasteful and the doctors make too much. So he capped the doctors' wages. As a result of that, a lot of doctors ended up quitting and or a lot of doctors ended up moving to the United States where they could make a lot more money because it was more of a free market system depending on which state they moved to. But even there, healthcare is largely the responsibility of states, individual states. So you get a great variation in systems and quality of care and wait times and all of these issues and insurance issues and accessibility in all of these different states. So these are very complex issues. And I don't think it's really fair to take two issues like that. They spent money over here. They could have spent it over there, but just throwing money at something doesn't always solve it. And you've got two different sets of issues that need to be, I think, looked at separately. And then maybe as a full picture overall of a budget and expenditures. But I'll throw it back to you for your comments.
Yeah. For me, human life is like the most critical. So I'm much more of the position that we have an absolute critical responsibility to our citizens. I mean, if you look at this one article, it's from the Fraser Institute. I didn't print it off. I didn't expect that we were going to be going. We were going to spend this much time on here. Otherwise, I would have.
Me either. But that's okay. We can talk about anything you want.
So they're saying that they've been shipping patients to the States for surgery. I really wish that I would have printed this off, but a guy.
Who is sending patients to the States? Ontario, Alberta, which province?
It says.
And for what?
It doesn't say. Actually, well, you know what? I can just text you this right now. Sure. Here we go. I should have set us up on Signal. That would have been made things way better. But ultimately, even if it was only $1 billion in cash, Canadian government over the last decade has had atrocious track record of, I mean, the debt per citizen when Trudeau took power was 47,000 per citizen. It's now 97,000 per citizen. So it's doubled per citizen. And so it's, you can't, governments are not any different than us regular people. You know, there's a belief that the government doesn't have to balance the budget. And well, it's
well, actually, it's not the same as an individual person, but that's
well, you're right. It's not the same because
I don't have the power to print money.
Yeah, exactly. And well,
so
yeah,
it's not the same.
Yeah, and they should.
And I can't tax people.
Yeah, and so they shouldn't be printing money because they're just pushing.
Well, they should, but just responsibly. They just every government
that's just it, right? Nobody has an issue with printing some money here and there, but adding $500 billion to the debt is just absolute reckless financial insanity. It's not sustainable, and Carney's sitting.
Depends on what you spend it on, I suppose. I mean, I understand the concerns, and I've never been in favor of. I don't like debt. I don't like to see the federal government going into debt, but there are times when it is warranted, and right now would be one of those times when deficit spending, I think, is warranted because we are facing downward economic pressure. We're facing this tumultuous time of uncertainty, and this is because of Trump's tariff war. So, as a result of that, the government is pivoting and taking steps to make investments in infrastructure, which is, in some ways, it's Keynesian economics, which is to say that in times of an economic downturn, governments will invest in make work projects, infrastructure projects to stimulate the economy using monetary policy, deficit spending.
Yes.
In order to, and if you do it correctly, that can then stimulate the economy and give you something that gives you payback over the long term, like building a highway or building a railway, investing in your country, like connecting your country east-west with a railroad, as Canada did, so too did the United States, or investing in, hydro or electrical infrastructure to carry power, or nuclear power plants, or even today we're seeing they're going to build a spaceport out in Nova Scotia to stimulate Canada's aerospace industry.
Yes.
And we're going to launch, I think it's 20 satellites. It's so that we reduce our dependence on Starlink, Elon Musk.
Yes.
We make sure that we have sovereign control over our communications and our defense.
Yes,
now we can monitor everything from satellites above on our own without relying on another country, which could, you get some president in there who's evil, who decides that Canada's the enemy someday and could flip a switch and make us go dark, and then we're blind, or the Russians, so it's ours. So we would control it, and therefore we have control over our own defense. But again, these are the kinds of things that governments do invest in during times of downward economic pressures. The problem is that governments often don't stop spending when the economy gets better, right? And I think that was the problem with Trudeau, is that, he was prime minister during the pandemic, so I didn't agree with the way what he was spending the money on, and the way he was spending it at the time. And so now we're kind of paying the price for that. I was highly critical of it, and I stand by that. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah. Well, here's an article from the Fraser Institute, and it talks about how Poland, Greece, Germany, and Japan all came to Canada and begged Canada for natural gas, and they said no. And that's probably $1 trillion worth of natural gas. Germany just signed a 25-year deal with Qatar. And so when a deliberate decision is made to refuse to sell clean natural gas and end these wait times. I mean, they create the problems. There's no reason, like our wait times are quadrupled, doubled. To your point, I mean, the doctors are overworked and overwhelmed, which, so you combine the fact that they said no to $1 trillion worth of gas projects, which is financial suicide, and then bring in so many people that it overwhelms the medical system. I mean, I have so many friends, they want an MRI and it's a year and a half. So they end up spending.
Except again, I need to stop you there.
Yeah.
Because that's not entirely accurate. You're not telling the whole story on the LNG.
I mean, $1 trillion worth of gas is like, my wife worked for Chevron and she was part of the Kidnap project.
But Brandon, you're not. Look, Carney reversed that. What you're saying is not up to date and it's not accurate. Carney's energy minister rebukes Trudeau over LNG policy in Europe. So he has reversed the policy, the position of the government, and these sales of LNG are proceeding. And that is as of August of last year.
Well, what I find very hard to
that's why I sit here. I will call out negative things for any politician, right? You do something bad, I stand by my assertions before that Justin Trudeau was the worst prime minister in Canadian history. I still say that. But if Carney does something good, like reversing something bad that Trudeau did, I'll say he reversed it because it's true. And that's good for Canada. It's good for Alberta. It's good for the people. That's why liberals are kind of, in some ways, scratching their heads and looking at Carney and saying this could be a Harper government because he's acting more like a conservative than a liberal in many respects. And fiscally, I would say that that's very true.
Well, I guess a pound of prevention is, ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And Carney,
so you're still so you're not like what's the issue? So the LNG is going to go, and we're going to be selling that, and we are. It's happening.
Well, if I
are you happy? Are you happy about that?
Well, I guess I would. The devil's in the details. I mean, they've been saying all these things, but
no, it's happening. It's happening. It's happening. The other thing is, like, you want to talk about energy, right? And I give credit to Poilievre and the Conservatives for putting pressure on the carbon tax stuff. It's largely because of the Conservatives that this happened, but Carney came in and he cut the carbon tax. He stole that plank right out of the Conservative election platform, made it his own. Then he comes in and he made good. And so until the war started, gas went from like $1.60 or $1.65 a liter because of Trudeau, all the way down. I was paying like $1.13. That's a massive drop. That's because of Carney, but it's also because of Poilievre. It's because the system works, because the Conservatives applied pressure, people like yourself, people like me complaining about the carbon tax. And finally, after Trudeau goes, you get a different prime minister in. They see what the pressure is. They saw what the people wanted during the election. He pivoted. He responded, cuts the carbon tax. I'm like, okay, I'll take it any way I can get it. And if it means pressure coming from the Conservatives, applied and then recognized by the Liberals so that they steal that from the Conservative platform, which Poilievre was saying, you're saying, steal my ideas, go ahead and do it. So he did. And he cut the carbon tax. We were paying less for gas. I was quite happy about it. And I'm like, thank you, Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. That's where I stand on it.
Well, I guess since Carney was Trudeau's economic advisor, unpaid economic advisor, during the entire time that he refused to sell natural gas, I it's, to me, it's kind of like, well,
that's kind of a trope. He wasn't Trudeau's
look at
sole economic advisor.
No, I didn't say sole, but he was like, I mean, Trudeau was very.
Nor do you know exactly. You don't really know what Carney was advising Trudeau. Trudeau made his own decisions. He had a finance minister, and Trudeau was the prime minister, and those decisions were made at that level. But yeah, he did provide some consultative advice because he's a very learned man. He's an economist. He ran the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. He knows his stuff. So of course he was consulted over time, but he didn't make policy.
Yeah, he didn't have a very good reputation of his time that he spent in the Bank of England. And secondary,
no, that's because Liz Truss criticized him, but that's one voice, and she had a political axe to grind. In fact, right. he was able to guide Canada and the Bank of England out of very tough economic times. It was her economic policies, her budgets that ended up getting her turfed. She was not prime minister for very long. In fact, I think she's the shortest serving prime minister in British history, if I remember correctly.
Right. It
was her own damn fault. It wasn't Mark Carney. And Mark Carney doesn't set economic policy, and didn't set any economic policies as the governor of either the Bank of England or the Bank of Canada. It's his job to be as the governor of the bank, to be an impartial arbiter and to make sure that he's a neutral party, not political. Have you read portions of it?
Values?
Yeah, portions of it.
So if you read his books, if you read his book Values, what Trudeau did was based practically word for word what Carney did.
Well, I'm not here to defend Mark Carney about everything. I'm judging the man by what he's doing right now, and I'm judging him by his actions. But I was paying $1.13 for gas. That's because of what Mark Carney did. So I'm not. What do you want me to do? Criticize Mark Carney for cutting the gas tax?
Well, I guess.
Do you want me to crap all over Mark Carney because he reversed the position on the liquefied natural gas that you wanted sold to Europe and Japan and Germany, and that's happening now? So you want me to be upset about that? I'm happy about it, just like you should be, because that's what you wanted and that's what you're getting.
Yeah, I guess I'd be a lot more happy. Like, it's so easy to, like I've looked up the different articles about these supposed gas deals that Carney is bringing in, and there's nothing written in stone. This could have been written in stone 8 years ago. And so
now you're talking about the pipelines and the criticism that comes from places like Rebel News and some of the conservative, media outlets that say, or even Pierre Poilievre, like, it's not happening, it'll never happen. We want results, we want it now. And it's because of the approach that Carney is taking to the pipelines. That's not the LNG projects, and they're upgrading the LNG infrastructure to facilitate more exports of LNG to other countries. And yes, I understand that Pierre Poilievre would like to use, I think, Section 92 of the Constitution to just ram a pipeline through. But if you do that, you will end up with decades of litigation on your hands, because you will not have gone through a proper consultation process with First Nations. And so this is what Carney is in the process of doing with the major projects department that he's set up. And he's making sure that he goes through the process in a proper way, legally, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, so that we don't end up with massive delays in the long run and legal challenges that could cost the government billions of dollars, not just in compensatory payments, but in reconciliation payments on top of that. And additional, maybe unresolvable claims with regard to, fees for oil tariffs or transfer fees through the pipelines, through certain portions of land. And these become very complicated things because the Canadian system of governance is considerably different than anything you might find in the United States, because we have different layers of jurisdiction.
Yeah, I don't buy into the Liberals' excuses for these things. If you look at this, for example, they canceled Tech Frontier Oils, that's 20 billion, Energy East Pipeline, that's 15 billion, Northern Gateway, that was 8 billion, Keystone was 8 billion, Pacific Future Energy Refinery was 11 billion, Grassy Mountain Coal Mine was 2 billion, and Quebec buys $50 billion a year of gas, oil from Algeria. There's no reason why they couldn't buy that from Alberta. I mean, if you look at the number of
well, you'd need a pipeline.
Yeah,
for one thing.
But it's the Liberals. When the Liberals decided they wanted to legalize marijuana, it was very simple. They just told everybody, "You're going to legalize marijuana," and so they did. It was that simple. It's not. I'm not an advocate for legalized marijuana. I'm actually very much against it, but that's what we got. I'm just giving that as an example because the reason why when Trudeau said we can't make a financial case for it, well, the reason why he couldn't make a financial case for it is because he had spent all those years.
It doesn't, but Brandon, it doesn't matter because Trudeau's not there and the policy has been reversed. And the whole thing is proceeding now. So it's a moot point.
Right. But that's only a headline, Rick. I would like to see an article that says we have a guaranteed deal with Poland to sell this much gas.
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't know what we were supposed to be talking about here tonight exactly. So right. I'm just telling you that these things are happening. That these were announced. I remember them being announced. That's why I'm telling you about them. And there are many articles out there about it. And you're showing me an article that is out of date. So if you're going to bring this forward, then I put the onus on you to bring the information out in full. So.
Yeah, it's not out of date.
It is out of date because you weren't even aware that Carney had reversed the policy.
Well,
or made these other announcements. And in fact, the LNG stuff is part of the overall federal approach to major projects to build the nation.
Yeah, a headline, Rick. Right, a headline in the newspaper doesn't mean that we're guaranteed to have those 4 contracts with those 4 countries. Germany has already signed a 25-year deal with Qatar. So I guess and part of the importance because we started talking about Alberta, here is a great picture of the amount of senators representation in Canada. And so PEI, for example, has 4 senators and they have 200,000 people. So that means they have 1 senator for every 50,000 people that live in PEI. Alberta, on the other hand, has 5 million people. And so we should have 25 senators. And Alberta actually only has 6 senators. And so there would be an opportunity for Alberta to be more, since Alberta is outsized, pulling its weight, and the grievances that Alberta has are very legitimate. Like, for example, this is a quote from Clifford Sifton, the Interior Minister of Canada in 1904, and he said, "We desire that the great trade of the prairies shall go to enrich our people in the East, to build up our factories and our places of work, and every legitimate way to our prosperity." And so Alberta is, the federal government is basically being on a war against Alberta. And if anybody has a, what I would say, a nostalgic or a feeling in their heart about Canada, I think that if you look at the way that the government has been treating the people, the fact that Carney's willing to go all the way to China to make a deal with them, when we have a way more important trading partner that shares the longest unprotected border in the entire world. Why would you try to go to China and make a deal with China for 47,000 EVs, which of course means that the car factories that are already here are not going to get that business. And so if you actually look at Carney's last month, so far this year, Carney's has shed 84,000 jobs. And so on just about every way that you can possibly measure it, the federal government has done everything in its power to crush Alberta and just keep it on life support.
Bullshit.
So
bullshit, Brandon. That's bullshit.
You have to do the research.
I'm sorry. I have done my research.
If you did, you wouldn't be saying that.
Okay. Well, let me enlighten you.
It's 670 billion, Rick. 670 billion more. 670 billion more. If people have a nostalgic idea of Canada, whatever the Canada was when I was a kid doesn't exist anymore.
All right. Okay. Sure.
And so if people,
what do you mean? What do you mean? Let me just backtrack and enlighten you on the tariffs and the Chinese vehicles.
Oh, I know lots about that. I've written.
Go ahead. Enlighten me then.
So the RCMP publicly has admitted, and I can send you that article, that we have 4,000 criminal gangs in Canada. And those 4,000 criminal gangs are mostly controlled by Hells Angels and the Chinese triads. And they funnel proceeds for fentanyl through casinos in the Lower Mainland. And
I'm sorry. What the hell does any of that crap have to do with the cars?
Well, what has to do with the cars, Rick, is that Carney, the reason why, one of the main reasons, not the only reason, but one of the main reasons Trump brought the tariffs in was trying to get Mark Carney's attention. You have a porous
Why did they bring the tariffs in?
One of the main reasons was Trump was trying to get the attention of the Liberal government and say, you're allowing hundreds of millions of dollars of fentanyl to flow into America from Canada. I mean, the RCMP knows there's 4,000.
Well, first of all, that's not true. But
sure it is.
Continue. No, it's not.
So, I mean, I guess
that's Sam Cooper BS is what that is, because he's a propagandist, and it's not true. None of the stats support that, and the fentanyl, the precursors, all of that stuff comes into Canada, and any of the fentanyl that is produced in Canada doesn't go to the States, Brendan. It goes to other countries, like I believe it's like Australia and New Zealand.
So what are those 4,000 criminal gangs doing, Rick? What are they doing?
Well, you get me the specifics on the 4,000 gangs in Canada, and then I guess we'll talk a little bit more. But
sure.
The fentanyl stuff is basically, it's not accurate. It's conflated information. The shoddy journalistic work that was done on this cites the TD Bank and laundered money through real estate deals. But what they don't tell you, what they don't highlight, is that a lot of the money and a lot of the money laundering involving the TD Bank involves not just the TD Bank, but TD Bank offices in the United States, and that this is a cross-border issue both in Canada and the United States. That's not to say Canada doesn't have a drug problem. We most certainly do. But the border issue, the border problem is more US problems coming into Canada than Canadian problems going into the United States. That's not to say there's never any issues flowing back the other way, but the vast majority comes into Canada. We have a problem with drugs coming into Canada from the United States: cocaine, methamphetamine, all the ingredients to produce these things. And it's illogical for these things to be imported into Canada, either from the United States into Canada, to then just export them back across the border into the US, because you'd have twice the chance of getting caught. It doesn't even make sense. And if you're talking about the smuggling of drugs from Central America and Mexico up through the United States, and then they come into Canada, those drugs are destined for Canada, for Canadian distribution and or export to overseas countries, including everything that was going on with that Ryan wedding, where they were conflating the information again to say that this Canadian drug lord, they're making it seem like he was responsible for a lot of the drug flows from Canada to the United States. In reality, he was down there in Central America making drug deals to get the stuff up into the United States from Central America. And the deals that he was making up in Canada were about exporting drugs from Canada to the US. And the Trump administration has been ginning this stuff up as a propaganda exercise in order to manufacture consent and justification for taking any kind of actions against Canada that they decide that they want to take. So they have a fentanyl tariff that they impose on all goods, when in fact our problem is that we have way too many illegal weapons coming up across the border into Canada, and we have far too many drugs coming into Canada from the United States. And so our responsibility is to secure the Canadian side of the border. Their responsibility is to secure the US side of the border. But Trump is making it sound like it's our responsibility to secure the US side. If they're that concerned about drugs flowing into the United States, we can certainly work with them, and we do, but it's their job to stop it going their way. And it's our job to stop it coming this way. We've got a big problem with with weapons and drugs coming into Canada. And all those guns that are coming into Canada illegally, all those weapons, they're not going to hunters. They're going to criminals because they're illegal weapons.
Yeah, and so I agree with you totally. And so I just sent you the article from the RCMP website that talks about the sanctions. It talks about the criminal gangs. It talks about
well, we do have gangs, and they have gangs down there too.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And we need to deal with that, and we do.
Yeah,
but I'm tired of the propaganda being used with these pro-51st staters and separatists who keeps blaming Canada for all these U.S. problems. The problems are in the United States.
I don't think that's an accurate assessment of it, just simply because of the fact that the head of police Toronto has been saying for years that the problem with guns in Toronto is illegal guns. And so instead,
where do they come from? Where do the illegal guns come from?
Well, quite possibly the States. But
yes, exactly.
Right. But here's the thing. Okay. Instead of the Liberal government saying, they could do something simple. They could say, if you we are going to make a law that you are caught breaking the law with an illegal weapon, it's going to be 10 years in prison for the weapon and 10 years in prison for you're using it. But instead, Liberals could do that, but they let cash bail people go out, and they go and repeat the crime in a matter of days or weeks. And so they could easily make laws that would criminalize.
Sure. Well, you want tougher laws in Canada against people who have gun crimes.
Trudeau and Carney have made gun owners, legal gun owners that behave well with their guns, and they've made a whole bunch of other guns illegal, which was totally unnecessary. and so the Liberal government is still getting the Toronto Star. The last time I read, 20% of their income came from the federal government. So the Toronto Sun, the last time.
All right, we're jumping around from issue to issue, like from one thing to another thing to another thing.
Yeah, but it's not jumping from issue to issue, really. What it really is it's all fruit of the poisonous tree. And so the tree is rotten. And so all the attacking farmers, attacking legal gun owners instead of actually attacking the criminals, making the criminals responsible instead of...
Okay, I mean, I know, like, these are ongoing, never-ending issues. Gun control, is it too much? Isn't it enough? I know. Is this what we were coming on here to talk about tonight?
Well, that's
just... I don't know. It feels like we're meandering all over the map, just dealing with all the, like, I don't know. What's the purpose of tonight's conversation?
Well, I just hope that everybody with, the war that the federal government has been at with Alberta, nobody when you hear things like a Canadian senator going on the radio and calling everybody in Alberta transphobic, homophobic, misogynist, xenophobic, it's the same trope as Trudeau's, like, how long do we put up with these unacceptable views? And there really hasn't, and nothing's really changed with Carney. If you read Carney's values book, basically he was laying out the map of what he's doing right now and what he was doing during most of the entire Trudeau regime. He was...
Have you read the book?
Unpaid. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's absolutely terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. He's talking about the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that it's going to take, that we need to change all the financials for companies all across the nation. And so they will be encouraged to adopt all these net zero goals, so that then the companies will be forced to do all these net zero goals. And quite frankly, that's one of the reasons why Alberta wants out. And so, there's only so many things that you can see terrible that the Liberals have done to, at some point you go, hey, we tried to work this out. We tried to get a fair share. We tried to, and they're not interested. I mean,
everything, just about every single thing you brought up tonight, you haven't been accurate on at all. Like, in some cases, not even close.
Well,
and
I believe that's your opinion.
These are demonstrable facts.
Well, I just sent you the RCMP thing, but maybe
what is it? Where does it say in the RCMP thing? And I haven't even looked at it. Show me in there where it says that Canada was exporting these drugs to the United States, and that was the primary destination for whatever was produced in Canada.
Well,
in the RCMP release,
it's pretty simple, and the reason why we know this, even though I even haven't read it yet, which I'll have to, maybe we should just pick up this call next week so I can come back with all the information.
We've had 3 weeks setting this up, and I didn't know what we were even going to talk about, and so I'm just throwing it back at you, man. Like, this is stuff that I'm dealing with here every night, and this is why I know some of this stuff just off the top of my head, because I've been sitting in the chair for the last 5 or 6 years, and all of these stories have been things that I've been dealing with over time. So it's like a Rolodex, a lot of this stuff, and I challenge you, like, and if Canada is like a huge supplier of fentanyl to the United States, I'll acknowledge it. But none of the actual evidence supports that at all. But a lot of the propaganda does.
Well, see, it's quite simple for most people to see that, like,
Canada, to read the propaganda and buy into it, because it craps all over the country.
No,
Yeah,
not at all. I don't think so, because, and the reason I
100%.
don't think so is California has the same population as Canada. And so the Chinese triads, okay, aren't making fentanyl in Canada just for this tiny little market across 5,000 kilometers. They're have super labs and 4,000 criminal gangs because the U.S. is the larger market.
Show
And
me. Show me. Show
well,
me.
I mean,
Prove it.
Well, okay. Well, how about we do this?
Because
I will.
nothing supports what you're saying except for a couple of conservative you show me that the actual documentation from the RCMP, police, government documentation, verifiable information, not some hack who's been proven to lie.
Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of this stuff is coming from a journalist that has been caught lying multiple times about this stuff.
Right.
So just show me and I'll accept it. But the United States is not the primary destination for the fentanyl that is produced in Canada.
Well, I haven't been able to believe almost anything the Liberals have said for the last decade.
It's not coming from the Liberals, though, Brandon. It comes from police. It comes from border security.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess Canada is.
Find me the release and show me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe why don't we do this then? Why don't we pick this up next week, and I'll go do my homework, and then I'll come back with some.
Was this what we were? I thought you wanted to talk about. I thought you wanted to talk about separatism or something.
Well, I mean, this is what I'd say. Yeah. This is what I would say, quote unquote, about separatism. Ronald Reagan said. Ronald Reagan used to be Democrat, and the press asked him why he left the Democratic Party, and his response was, "I never left the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me."
Mm-hmm.
And so the average Albertan isn't leaving Canada. The average Albertan is Canada left Alberta 100 years ago. And so
why is that?
Well, the best person I tried to find my book so I could show it on the screen today. Actually, I can text it to you quick. Dr. Michael Wagner has a PhD at the University of Calgary, and he's been writing books on this for ages and ages and ages. And he explains how that all the different historical precedents that from the beginning, basically when the ink was dry, on Confederation, the federal government basically made rules to get farmers to sell most of their grain to the government, and then the government turned around and sold it and made most of the money. Then after that, they made laws that stopped farmers from buying their equipment from Ontario instead of being able to buy them across the line where they were cheaper. And so there was a couple Alberta.
Excuse me. Whoa. You're telling me that there was a law that prohibited Alberta farmers, that forced Alberta farmers to buy Ontario-built farm machinery?
Yes.
That's not true.
I mean, it's not. It was. Well, it depends on what a person's definition is.
There's never been a law. You just said that, and that's not true.
You can make all kinds of that's the easiest way that you can say it, in a simple way that most people would understand the effects on Alberta farmers. I mean, you can implement all kinds of regulations to do such that, and then so if you look at what Alberta has contributed to Canada versus the other way around, and then and we're just trying for 100 years. We've been trying to just go to work and do our job and be left alone. But unfortunately, the Liberal government has gone out of its way to do everything in its power to cripple us. And in a
Like during the 1930s and the Dust Bowl, when your farmers were going under?
Then no, like that was in since Confederation, Alberta has given Canada $650 billion. So Canada refused to sign $1 trillion worth of gas contracts, and all those people,
which I just told you is reversed, and you keep coming back to it.
Well,
but
I am making a claim. Okay, just because the Liberals make a claim, they've made all kinds of claims that were total lies. I mean, here we are. You can just say that they're lying, and I can show you the article. I just showed you the Bloomberg article, and I'll put the link in the chat. Yeah,
for everybody to go find it. You can go read it for yourself.
Yeah, but it doesn't help the 100,000 people that have died waiting for surgeries, Rick. And so,
again, Brandon,
it's not. It's
they
not,
didn't. You're not giving people the whole story.
Well, but it's actually that simple.
It's not that simple.
It's actually the Liberals that claim that it's more complicated. There was no the law.
If I'm on a waiting list for a hip replacement and I'm in my 90s and I die of a heart attack, it doesn't mean I died because I was on the waiting list. So you're taking a gross number and then you're connecting a dot to an assumption.
So you think the Liberal government is awesome and we should keep voting for them?
I didn't say that.
Okay, well, I'm just asking.
I'm asking for accuracy in what you're putting forward here.
Well, so then maybe, like I said, maybe we should pick this up in a week.
No, we're in the middle of this, and I had as much time to prepare for this as you. Let's move on. You keep coming back to making the same statements, which you're just saying, well, they're just lying. Okay, well, if that's your argument, then that's your argument.
Yeah, but your question is theoretical, though. You don't.
What's my question?
Your statement is that if somebody died on the waiting list and you don't necessarily know that they died because they were on the waiting list, that's true. But you, on your hand, you don't know that that wasn't the case, and so the onus is
on you,
on both people,
on you to bring accurate information forward. And I would say that article that you're citing there also has not. If that's all that they're stating, that doesn't adequately provide clarity on the information.
If anybody can't see that 23,000 people dying in a year on a waiting list, if they can't see how, for example,
it depends on you can make statistics say just about anything. So you need to be accurate in what you're saying.
Well, I am. I'm just reading.
I'm sure that you are, but I've worked in media for a long time, and I know what clickbait is. And I know how newspapers use headlines to amplify a narrative.
It's just astounding. Like, so if you were to estimate, Rick, of that 100,000 people, how many would you think? Over how
many years? A decade?
Since in the last 8 years, of the 100,000 people that died waiting for surgery, how many of them do you think are not legitimate? Like they just died and they were on a list, but they actually, the thing that they were on the list for wasn't what they died of. They died of
if we wanted to get into the nitty-gritty, I'd want to see a breakdown on this, the data to see exactly what's involved.
Well, but I guess the reason I'm asking that question, like if you were to guesstimate, what do you think? What would you
I
guess?
wouldn't presume to guess. That's why I'm asking for accuracy and details on something that you're bringing forward.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, I didn't really, I didn't like. All I needed to know was 100,000 people died waiting for surgery. I didn't think it was that complicated that we had to try to find out. I mean,
But it is complicated, and it is important to be accurate. It is important to look at the big picture. Otherwise, you don't get, if you don't have accurate information, you don't get to good outcomes if you're trying to affect a solution. And especially with something like healthcare, there are so many variables, so many factors involved that it, so often people say, well, they're just not funding it enough. We need to spend more money. No, that may not be why. It could be for a whole bunch of reasons. I mean, those numbers that came out while they're on a waiting list, did they die from COVID? Did they die from, what did they die from? This is an important point. So what period of time was it in? What was going on at that period of time? Why were the numbers up? These are important questions. It's not enough to just look at a gross number and make an assumption that that's why they're on the waiting list and they died. Therefore, they died because they're on the waiting list. We don't know why. I don't know why they died. They're on the waiting list. But what's the waiting list made up of? What surgeries? Heart surgeries, cancer surgeries, brain surgeries, hip replacements, knee replacements. What kind of waits were they waiting for? Because if you're on a waiting list for hip or knee replacement, maybe nobody dies, or maybe a very small number of people die for those surgeries. But if you want to lump a bunch of people together, you can make a much bigger number. If you want to then add people on heart replacement surgeries, add those in. I think a lot of people on waiting lists for heart transplants die because they can't get hearts, or liver transplants or kidney transplants because they can't find donors in time. So those people would die. That would inflate the number a lot. You take those people out of the data and the number goes down. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can make these numbers say anything. And you could go back the other way too. You could make it seem like it's a lot less by taking certain data out and putting other data in. It's not enough to just throw a number out there like that for the public to consume. And I'm not blaming you. These are in these articles, but there's a lot of sloppy journalism out there.
Right. Well, I guess the president of Second Street, who actually was part of providing the information for this release, stated that no government reports actually publicly state these things.
Sure, they do.
And so
absolutely they do. I know they do, because I told you, even back in the 90s, I was doing extensive coverage on the heart surgery wait times here in Ontario. It was terrible. And a lot of people were dying at that time on waiting lists because they couldn't get heart surgery. And so they were dying of heart attacks. Yeah, that's the issue. But you're carving that information out. That's a data set that's specifically for heart surgery patients, and you're looking at that data. But to take hip replacements or brain surgery or kidney transplants and lump them all in together, you're going to get a different result mathematically on the other side. You see, it builds a bigger number.
Yeah, I guess for me, when you look at the other horrifically terrifying number that the Liberal government has been overseeing, is the 76,000 people that have died from MAID in the past 9 years. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it's just more clear. I mean, I'm fairly confident that if we can even get these numbers, because it'll be interesting, because the reason why they did this article in the first place was they weren't able to just go and get the data. They had to use freedom of information requests to get this data in the first place.
Well, this is actually something that strikes home pretty close to home for me, because I've had a personal experience within my family with regard to that. So I'm happy to talk to you about it. Let's take a little break. We'll come back on the other side, and we'll continue the discussion on the maid issue. Hang on.
All right.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay.
Wow. So what happened, Rick?
Well, someone in my family, and I don't know how much I should really talk about. I've spoken about it a little bit here on the program at times, but someone went through the program and no longer here. So, I was pretty upset about it. And, for purposes of transparency, like, I'm against the MAID program as it stands. And so very emotional subject for myself and my family. I don't agree with it as it is. So that's my position on it, overall, but there is nuance in this as well. And it's a very difficult subject, euthanasia, right? It's been a controversial subject like forever. Yeah. So I'll throw it over to you and get your opening thoughts on it, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. I'm sorry that happened to you, Rick.
Well, it's something that any death in any family in any way affects everyone, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So it's just something we went through, and I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah. That is, I've lost a few different friends to I don't know what the word is that doesn't get censored, but this is also very have you ever heard of Delta Hospice?
No, I mean I'm familiar with other hospices, but not.
Yeah, Delta Hospice is a hospice in BC, in the Lower Mainland, and the government basically took their building away from them because they were
I think I know,
helping people
because I think I've seen some of the posts on that where they were refusing to provide medical assistance and dying services, and so their funding was taken away.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly. Yeah,
and so it just seems to me.
I don't think they closed the facility. They
lost their building. They had to find a new building
because a lot of their funding was removed, and I have to remember what the issue was, though, because there's some nuance to that as well, because the I it's been about 6 months since I saw that information,
Yeah.
and it is because the patients, they didn't want to provide the service there. I don't really want to comment too much on it because it's all foggy in my head.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah. For me, it's
um,
life is a life, and I guess it's just tragic.
but the
That
patients there were still offered MAID at other facilities, but they would have to leave. And so they went to another facility if they wanted to go through the MAID program. And this was, of course, it's an end of life facility, right? So it's a hospice where people are, they're there because they're dying. So
yes,
they're at end of life.
yes,
And so, of course, that gets you into the, there's no possibility of living, then um, that in itself takes on another layer of nuance and discussion.
yes, yes,
Um, and so, some people don't want to suffer at the end of life. And
yes,
so they want to, they would prefer to, have a doctor assist them in the end so that they don't suffer.
yeah,
Um, where other people are like, no, you have to, like, nobody can intervene, and you just have to die naturally. And of course they would administer pain medication and so on. So this is that's an issue unto itself within the issue,
yes,
right? And then yes, there is, and I don't remember, I don't know, I don't remember what the exact budgetary issues were, or the political things surrounding the loss of the building, that there was something
right.
with regard to all of that as well. So there's a layer to that that is missing in this conversation that
Hmm.
needs clarification
Yeah,
before I say anything more about it.
yeah, yeah, um, yeah. Yeah, I just, when Trudeau was prime minister, he publicly said, the vets are being unreasonable, and they're asking for more money um, than the government can provide. And I just, when there's like clear desire, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. No one's be able to explain to me and make sense to me that all these things that the government could do, I mean, it's not, I mean, we had 84,000 jobs shed last month. I mean, that's just the headline I read. I don't know what that is related to.
I know exactly what it's related to. They're shedding jobs in the United States too at a rapid rate. We're going
Right.
into something of a recession, maybe worse, and it's because of the tariff war. And
Right.
it's not even just because of the tariffs themselves. It's because the way these tariffs have been applied, and just the presence of the tariffs and the economic policies of the Trump administration, it has created great uncertainty in the economy. So that in itself affects investment. Companies don't know whether to go left or right, up or down, invest, not invest, spend, don't spend. So everybody starts to just put the brakes on, and it slows the whole economy down. It's terrible economic policy coming from Trump. That's the reason. And even though he stands there and lies about the numbers, the reality is the United States is losing jobs, and our economies are tied together. So when the United States suffers, so Canada suffers too. That's
So what
why
do you?
we're pivoting.
So what? Um. So um. Do you feel like like, for example, our tariffs, for example, on dairy is like 250% or something.
Yeah.
How do you keep those in tariffs in place, or do you try to lower them, or
Let me ask you this. How does Canada see? I used to be more in the Maxime Bernier camp on this,
right,
and I used to say just open the market.
right.
Not anymore. In fact, because of the tariff war and what Trump has done, I've switched my position entirely on it.
Mm.
I used to be free market all the way, open it up both ways, everything, no tariffs at all. But given what I've seen coming from the White House with Trump and Trump 2.0, my position is 180 degrees different now. And let me ask you this. How does the Canadian tariff on dairy, which is a carve out, it's not, indicative of or representative of, Canadian economic policy overall through the USMCA, which Trump negotiated, by the way, and approved and called the best trade deal ever when it was approved in Trump 1.0. It's a carve out. How does that hurt the United States?
Well, I think I'm not so concerned about the United States as I am concerned is if the conversation of tariffs comes up, then I would want to see, like, if you look at the number of stories that have been in the media about farmers throwing out milk,
Mm-hmm.
and you start doing some investigation into
why do they throw the milk out?
Because their rules state that each producer is only allowed to submit so much milk, and
why
they won't allow, because those are the cartel rules.
Cartel. That's a propagandistic term. Rule. Cartel. Okay, so the dairy board says, yeah, they have quotas for each of the farmers. Why do they do that? Do you know why they do it, or should I just tell you? I'll explain it if you want.
Sure.
Okay. It's supply management. It is a system that is designed to protect Canadian dairy farmers from especially foreign competition, but more than that, it's to provide price stability within the system. So our dairy farmers are efficient, even on the scale at which they operate, but they have quotas in place because they can produce a lot more milk, which we could sell to the United States. In fact, we could dump it into the US market and even, do it in a way that would be predatory, but we don't. We sell very little milk into the US market. We don't dump. We're not the Chinese, so we don't dump. Instead of dumping it into the US market, we dump it down the drain. The reason we do that is because if we don't, we will oversupply, or we'll inject too much supply into the Canadian marketplace, thus forcing the price down to a point where the farmers themselves would begin to feed on each other, and they would begin to sell below cost. Some would go out of business. It destabilizes things. It's essentially you're creating a totally free market within the market, where this system is set up to ensure, because it's food and we're concerned about food sovereignty, food stability, and food security, which people in the freedom movement talk about all the time. But on this issue, they're a little bit upside down, because where dairy is concerned, the idea is provide as much milk as the market can consume to the point where you get a price equilibrium that is affordable to the public, but still provides a good standard of living and a good stable income for the dairy farmers and for their employees. Canada's farms are much smaller on scale than the big factory farms in the United States. In addition to that, there are other issues, and this is why it's so important to be accurate with your information and your data and all of the other variables that come into play. Because in the United States, for instance, they use growth hormone to get their cows to produce a lot more milk in order to reduce their costs and boost their profits. In Canada, those practices are not used and are prohibited because we don't want that in our milk. So we are able to supply our domestic industry, our consumers, provide Canadians with milk at an efficient price. And I have done it many times on the program. I could do it right now and compare the price of milk in, say, Windsor, Ontario, to the price of milk in Detroit, right across the border. And it's always pretty close. It's not, there's not a huge variable. You'll find, variations in pricing from province to province. It depends on each province and taxation and the way that supply management is administered from province and region to region and market to market, because there's still competition in the market. But the supply management system is set up to protect especially smaller dairy operations. The U.S. wants to come in and they want full access to the Canadian dairy market because it's worth billions of dollars every year. They want to be able to just come in tariff-free, use their big factory farms, growth hormones, produce all this milk, and basically flood the Canadian market. And if that happens, it will put small family farms, dairy farm operations out of business, whatever is left of them, and our medium-sized big agribusiness and even corporate-owned dairy operations. They'll be swallowed up by these larger American producers. And in fact, a lot of them may not even be producing in Canada at the end of the exercise because so much milk will come into the Canadian market. As a result, Canadian consumers may end up with slightly lower milk prices, but we won't be producing the majority of that in Canada. And if anything happens where you get some evil president who someday decides that he's going to flip a switch or do something nefarious to our economy, like impose other tariffs to drive us into the ground, like, I don't know, maybe is happening right now, then we wouldn't have any control over our own food. And if you want to be a sovereign nation and you want control over, like, it's a national security issue, which is something Trump keeps citing for a wide variety of things. This is what it is for Canada. This is Canada saying we want sovereignty over our food supply. It's a national security issue for us because food can be used as a weapon against us by any country. So we want to make sure that we are able to feed ourselves. We want farmers to produce here. We want to make, and we'll pay like 5 cents or 10 cents or even 50 cents more for 4 liters of milk in order to make sure that our farmers survive, our smaller farmers. We'll support that because if anything bad happens, like a pandemic or borders shut down for some reason, our farmers can still supply our market. And in addition to that, our standards, our quality standards, our safety standards are higher in Canada than they are in the U.S. And we want to make sure that Canadians are not subjected to that. Now, you're talking about healthcare, and even there you have an additional issue. If you're exposing Canadians to growth hormones through their milk supply, which some people think might be a health risk, that can have an impact on healthcare costs because it may cause cancer. It may cause other issues, diseases. You're giving this to our kids. We don't know maybe what the long-term impacts are of it. You can look at the science, you can have these debates, but I'm just laying out the issues for people without even really taking a position on this, except that I am taking a position on it because I've been transparent about it. I think now, given what I've seen during the pandemic and with the tariff war, I absolutely agree. We need to make sure that Canadians have the ability to feed ourselves. We need to support our farmers, especially our smaller farm operations. We need to make sure that no matter what happens, there's chicken in the supermarket, milk in the coolers, and food on the table at the end of the day, regardless of what any guy in Russia or China or the United States decides to do. We need to be able to feed ourselves. So that's why it's there. And we do not dump into the United States. If we were dumping our milk into the US, I would still be saying, screw this. That's not fair. That's not fair trade. That's not right. We can't be selling up here at this price and then dumping into the US market below market cost in order to destabilize their market. But we don't do that. See, that's why people are afraid of the Chinese, because they often manipulate their currency and they use government subsidies for manufacturing, and then they dump a lot of products into markets in order to destabilize and put certain sectors of economies right out of business so they can then afterward move in and take over. But Canada's not doing that. Trump cites the 250 or 300% tariff on U.S. milk coming into Canada. That's just there so that we don't let them flood our market. That's not predatory. That's defensive. If we were dumping milk into the U.S. market, it would be a completely different story. But he's flipped the argument upside down, and he's confusing people. And so that's why the tariffs are there. That's how supply management works. The reason they dump it down the drain is because we don't dump the milk, the additional milk that we are producing in Canada, into the United States, because we're protecting the US as well. We're saying we're not going to hurt you. We're going to dump it down the drain, because if we put it into the US market, it will force the price of milk down into their market, and that would be seen as predatory, and that could hurt US farmers. So we don't do that, because we're fair traders. And if we're going to have supply management on our side, we don't impose it on them. But what we're saying is we just don't want to trade on dairy. And we shouldn't be coerced to trade on anything. If you own something, right, you shouldn't be forced to sell it if you don't want to sell it. If you don't want to sell your house, you shouldn't have to be selling it. And I shouldn't be forced to buy something if I don't want to buy it. But if you want to trade, then let's trade, and we'll work out a mutually beneficial agreement. But that's not what Trump wants. He wants to take over our dairy market, and that's why the tariffs are there. Do you understand?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a couple of comments. First, I'm trying to reply to comments in here.
Oh, don't do that. Please stay out of that channel. Okay. That's not a good channel. That's not the main channel. Something. We don't acknowledge any of that, because I'll explain why later. Please just don't interact with that at all. Okay, I'll tell you why later. I'll tell you why later. Because it's the Rumble channel where is our main channel where I actually respond to people. Not in there. Maybe someday things calm down in there. I'll respond to the people, but until then.
Well, if anybody wants to rip a strip off me or whatever, I welcome that, because then if I learn some more stuff, that's always good.
I can. Look, let me. I'm not ripping a strip off you, but let me.
No, I didn't think that at all. But all I'm trying to say is I appreciate the dialogue, and to me,
absolutely,
that's the most thing. But getting back to the milk thing, I just sent you an article where it says we threw out 6 billion liters of milk.
Could be. I don't know.
And so I guess my question is, I sort of have a hard time. Like, there's people going hungry all over this country. Like, we spend government money on lunch programs.
I know it doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't seem to make sense. No. But at the same time, if you just put that milk out into the market, the farmers wouldn't survive. And then you wouldn't have any milk.
I'm not saying put it in the market. I'm saying just donate it to soup kitchens.
That's the same thing. It's still out there in the marketplace. Whether you're giving it away or, if you give it away, it still goes out. It reduces demand. It's supply and demand. It's just that simple. Supply and demand and price equilibrium. Where supply meets demand, that's your price. Yeah. And if you just start giving it away to people, now it's free. Well, here's all the, and you do want to support, people who are less fortunate. So there is a lot of that goes on, but you can't expect a farmer to just give away what they produce. They have to sell it, and they have to sell it at a profit, because the profit is their wage. Mm-hmm. And what sustains their operations, right? I guess so. It doesn't seem to make sense when you're dumping it down the drain. But the reason they dump it down the drain is because they're highly efficient, and even at the scale that they're at. And so it goes down the drain, because that's why the quotas are in place. So they overproduce, it goes down the drain, because the cows keep producing the milk after, right? And so what are we going to do? Oh, if the cow produced more milk, okay, it goes out. And I know it's maddening. And you go, well, people are starving. I get it. But everybody will starve in the long run if all your farmers are out of business, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of these got to be accurate with your information and understand what the policies really end up doing in the end. Back to the cars. Okay. See, this is what, let me explain. This is there's so much propaganda around these cars. I heard it today, in fact, with the defense minister, with a journalist asking about the Chinese spy cars.
Right.
Okay. Paranoia will destroy you. Right. Okay. So I get it, but let me explain the tariffs. Yeah. Right. Babe. What people do not understand, because you have to look at the larger picture, and I've explained this several times on this program. Canada has been in lockstep with the United States since the beginning of the auto industry. We have built the industry together. We both benefit, always have. First through the, dawn of the auto industry, the Industrial Revolution, the formation of the Auto Pact, then through the North American Free Trade Agreement, then through USMCA after, which Trump negotiated because NAFTA sucks. No, NAFTA was pretty good, actually, in a lot of respects, although it did result in a lot of offshoring of jobs, which was a bad thing overall, but there were good things about it too, in terms of efficiency. But the point is, our auto industry, auto assembly facilities, and parts largely integrated. When I see here, this is my auto show. I know this stuff because I've been an automotive journalist for so long.
Right.
When I go over to the North American International Auto Show, and I'd sit there and I'd listen to the auto executives, and they would give speeches, and they would talk about how they treated always Canada and the US as one market. That's the way they treated it. Now, there were trade agreements back and forth which ensured the viability of Canadian auto plants. And I could get into the details, but I won't get into the nitty-gritty and how all those things came together and how they worked to ensure that the Canadian side of the auto industry remained viable. Mm-hmm. But it allowed us to have a wide range of cars that we could purchase, choice. If we were on our own, we'd only probably have one or two models because of the size of our market. But anyway, integrated market, always has been. Since the era of the Model T and before, okay? Trump era comes in, and Biden, and you're getting into the electrification of the auto industry. You have these government programs that come online where they're trying to push the market using government incentives, tariffs, grants, subsidies for automakers to electrify the industry. And they're afraid of China because China wants to dominate the world market in electric vehicles.
Yeah.
So they're focused on not like just their market, they're focused on the world. They want to supply the world with electric cars, and they have comparative advantage in many ways. So they're very efficient in doing it, and they're subsidizing, at least they were in the initial stages, their vehicles. So they're producing cars way below the cost of what we can do it over here, because they're doing it on a much larger scale. But you got to remember, these producers are not just Chinese, and they're not just North American anymore. They're global. All right. They're world companies. They're multinationals. General Motors is not American. Ford is not American anymore.
Right.
Chrysler is not American. Chrysler is part of Stellantis, which for a time belonged to Mercedes-Benz. It was sold off from Chrysler to Mercedes, Daimler-Benz, right? And then, and now it's part of Stellantis, which owns like a whole bunch of different brands, from Alfa Romeo to Jeep to I don't know, there's how many, like a dozen or 15 or 20. I don't know. I'd have to look it up again. A whole bunch. I think they have Volvo. I'm not sure.
Well,
Volvo and separate. Anyway, point is, so Biden comes in, Brendan, and they impose a 100% tariff on the U.S. side against Chinese vehicles because the United States can't compete, can't produce electric vehicles for the same price.
Yeah.
So Canada, being a good trading partner, and because we've always worked with the United States, always, we're like, hey, we're practically family. We'll impose a 100% tariff on China too, because you've asked us to. So at the behest of the United States, we imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, just like the United States, in lockstep, because we're trying to work with the United States to build an electric vehicle industry together as an evolution of the auto industry.
Mm.
So what does China do? They respond because they're pissed, because now the United States is saying, you're not selling any Chinese cars here. But they don't attack the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They came after Canada.
Mm-hmm.
How? By imposing an 85% tariff on canola.
Yes.
Now, our canola farmers out in Western Canada are in deep shit.
Yeah.
So what does Rebel News do? Carney sucks. Well, it was Trudeau at the time, right? Trudeau sucks. Liberals suck. It's all their fault. No, it's not their fault. It's not. It's strategic on the behalf of the Chinese, responding to a U.S. policy, a U.S. protectionist policy that Canada was in lockstep with on electric vehicles. So Canada, being a great friend and sibling of the United States, we said we didn't do anything. We said, we'll just absorb it. We're going to take it on the chin. We're going to stay with you, USA, right? Trump comes in and he starts punching us in the face. Tariffs on this and 25% on that. We're suffering. Our farmers out in Western Canada are suffering because of the United States. And he doesn't appreciate it. So he's kicking us in the nuts. Right. So what are we supposed to do? He says, screw you, Canada. You stole our auto industry. That's not true. It's 100% false. We built it together, mutually beneficial, always has been. And he says, you've stolen it and we want it all. We're going to take all your auto factories. That's what he says. And he means it. He's very serious about it. It becomes very apparent. So what does Canada do? We have to defend ourselves, man. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to I don't want to lay down and let somebody pummel me in the face. I'm going to get up and maybe walk away and go find a new friend. So, and more than that, first thing I'm going to do is dust myself off and put some bandages on my wounds. And the biggest wound we had was those canola farmers. So Carney, who I know everybody here hates, I don't hate Carney. I'm just judging him based on what he has done. So what did he do? He went to work to go save the canola farmers. How did he do it? He went to China because Trump was kicking us in the nuts. And he said, hey, let's talk. So under the USMCA, we are not allowed to have a comprehensive, full-scale free trade agreement with what they refer to as a non-market economy like China. However, we can have carve-outs. So Carney went to China and got a carve-out. And he set up a deal that is going to allow the Chinese to import a limited number of Chinese vehicles, electric vehicles, into Canada, 49,000. All right. That's a small portion of the total number of vehicles sold in Canada every year, which amounts to almost 2 million per year.
Right.
As a result of Canada making that availability to our market for the Chinese, saying, we're actually free traders. We want a fair trade deal with you. We want a fair trade deal with the world. So we'll let you do that. In exchange, they reduced the canola tariff to, I think it's 10 or 15%. That now makes it viable for our canola farmers to export to China, which I believe is the biggest market for canola from Canada.
Yeah.
So he saved the Western farmers. Did you hear Rebel News or any of the other conservatives out there saying, thank you for saving the canola farmers? Not a peep.
Yeah.
All you're hearing now is those Chinese cars, they're spy cars. They're going to spy on us. What happens if we let all those in? And we can't let those in. They'll go to the United States. That's a back door. That's a security issue for the United States. That's BS too. Every one of those Chinese vehicles has a VIN number on it. Every part has a serial number on it. When they arrive in Canada, those cars come into Canada at the price sold to the Canadian distributor or retailer. And they're earmarked for the Canadian. They'll have a serial number on it that shows where it was produced and the market that it was built for, because they'll have to meet Canadian safety standards.
Right.
So as such, they'll come into our market. Not one of those cars will be destined for the United States. Now, if someone goes out of their way to find some way to import one into the United States, the serial number on it will, and even the fact that it's a Chinese produced BYD or whatever brand it is that comes in from China, they'll know right away at the border that it's a Chinese built vehicle, and it will be subject to a 100% tariff on the US side. So you can't dump them from Canada into the United States. That's a falsity. It's just a lie, a great big giant freaking lie. As for them being spy cars, that's another issue. But even there's nothing going to be in those Chinese cars that's going to spy on you any more than your cell phone doesn't already do. The reason and it's not just Chinese cars, it's all vehicles today monitor what you do and record what you do. And they do it to sell that data to marketing companies, to figure out when you need service next, so they can send you messages online saying your next oil change is due, or the maintenance on your EV is due. You need to get your tires changed for the winter. Come on into the dealership. So they monitor all of these things. That's all very true, right? And they monitor how much you've driven. I had a friend, I was just in his Tesla the other day, and he was showing me all the stuff that the Tesla could do. And it was all pretty cool. And, it gives you all kinds of data on how far you can go, how long it takes to charge. He was explaining the charging. And I've test driven a whole bunch of electric vehicles. So I get it, right? And there are a lot of things I don't like about them. I still prefer a gasoline powered vehicle. But these are the truths of what's been going on with the EVs. And the other truth of it is those companies like General Motors. Do you know where General Motors went bankrupt, dude? They had to get bailed out by the U.S. government, and Canada contributed to bailing them out too. Same thing with Stellantis. But GM, the biggest auto company in the world, goes bankrupt, gets bailed out. That's all our government money, right? Just propping up these big companies. But they've been expanding. They've been investing over in China. The Chinese market has been the biggest market for expansion and growth for General Motors for probably a decade. And if it wasn't for that growth, we wouldn't have General Motors probably in North America at all. So it's been the access to the market over there for General Motors so they could make a profit to prop up the corporation worldwide generally. So these are not simple things. It isn't as simple as Trump thinks, where you just impose a tariff and bring all the auto plants back. It's not that simple. Now, the reason General Motors is investing over there too is also because the Chinese do have tariffs. So they do build and other non-tariff barriers and incentives for them to build vehicles over there. But Tesla's building cars there. General Motors is building cars there. BYD, which is a Chinese brand, also building cars over there. But that's not so simple either, because U.S. investors, what's his name? The super duper mega rich guy. His name escapes me. He's one of the biggest investors in BYD, and he's American. So what do you want to do? Jail that guy or tariff him? Like, what's the guy's name? Doesn't matter. It'll come to me later. So Canada was just defending itself. Canada's pivoting. Canada did exactly what it should do. Carney did exactly what any prime minister, whether it's a liberal, a conservative, a new Democrat, a communist, a fascist, I don't care what it is. He did what should be done. He went and pivoted because Trump's not trading fair. He's cheating. In fact, he's the one who is violating the terms of the USMCA. He's the one who's tearing up the agreement that he negotiated in his first term, and he's not abiding by it. So what are we supposed to do, Brandon?
Yeah.
Like, really?
It's complicated. Just anybody out there, if you have questions about anything I've said tonight, please email me, brandon@suchatime.ca, and I'll be happy to answer those questions.
So are these your arguments for separating from Canada? That's my question. Because that's what we were supposed to be talking about.
Yeah, I did feel like it would be helpful for things to be explained about that. So I guess probably the better way to do this would for me to say to you, Rick, like, what do you think, like, ear to the ground thing? Well, what do you think the temperature is for people, and like what questions they have about why Alberta wants to be its own country?
I'm not sure I understand the question. What?
Well, like, if you were to ask a person on the street in Ontario, why do you think Alberta wants to leave? What do you think they would say?
I think they might repeat some of the things that they've been hearing online. I don't think that it matters what I would get from somebody on the street, because the arguments for separation, well, I guess it matters insofar as counter arguments to whatever the arguments are, but you have to start with the argument first and then respond to it.
Right. Yeah, I think if I could go back in time, I would have encouraged Quebec to leave, because the thing is that I think that everybody should be paying their own weight, like pulling their own weight. That's reality. And so it's fine that if some provinces don't have as many natural resources, I mean, and contributing to that, I mean, we would always be contributing more just because of our resources. But if you look historically over the last 100 years, Alberta has had an absolute raw deal. So, and with Pierre Poilievre voting for Bill C-4, that's a total, like, if you're concerned about freedom of speech, we find out that twice now we've gone to court and found out that the Emergencies Act was illegal, and there's no consequences for that. And the new bills, Bill C-9, Bill C-4 basically bans the Bible in all intents and purposes, because if you tell a child that's confused that there's male and female, which completely lines up with the Bible, I mean, and science, that's 5 years in prison. Pierre signed that into law with Trudeau. And so out here, we don't want to be the dad that was in BC who got thrown in jail because he didn't want.
These are, let me ask you this. How How would separating solve any of that?
Well, very simple.
If indeed you think that it's something, this issue, I hate to see solve that. How would that resolve that for you?
Well, okay. 1 second. I just thought of something to answer that question. 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay. I should have thought of that. Let me just see if I can find it. I had a notepad with it written on there. It's what it was submitted. For example, the Freedom Convoy. That was deemed illegal.
I'm coming back. I just asked you a question. How does separating resolve that issue for you?
Well, because it solves that issue because now we can have a constitution with, at the bare minimum, a number. We don't have like in America, they have the Electoral College.
Okay,
right?
Wait a minute. Let's slow down. What constitution are you referring to that you're going to have?
A constitutional republic.
And where's all this stuff written down? Because I don't know what you're like. What is it you're going to get? Is the question that's going to resolve this?
The main. So the difference between a constitutional republic and a democracy is mainly first you have the Electoral College. So in America, you have there's 50 states. You have 100 senators, 2 senators for each state. So even if there's overrepresentation in a state like New York and Florida and California,
how does so if let's just cut to the chase. So you want a U.S. style constitution in Alberta?
Yes. So
how does that resolve that issue for you?
You mean the separation issue?
No, the issue of, well, you said that the Canadian government has banned the Bible, right, which is not really accurate, but I'll just leave it there.
If you go to jail for 5 years for telling a child what the Bible says about gender, that's pretty
okay. Let's just take, because we'll be an hour on that issue alone. So let's just push that aside. We can talk about it more another time. But if that's the issue for you, or one of, how does separating and adopting this alternative U.S. style republic system, how does that solve that issue for you?
Well, the citizens of Alberta have written Alberta basically Bill of Rights. And so, for example, we wouldn't have Bill C-9 that's coming down the pipe.
That's what you won't have. I want to know what you're going to have that's going to resolve any of this for you. Well, by separating.
So by separating, it would stop the constant theft and resources, first of all, which would then now
theft. Well, that's a loaded word, and that's an issue unto itself. You're going to have additional expenses. It may not work out the way that you're thinking, and those are numbers. I want to know how separating solves the issue that you just identified, which is a core issue for you, of banning the Bible.
So Alberta has basically already voted, for example, there's no surgical sexual mutilation of children.
Doesn't matter what Alberta's already voted for. You're getting a completely new system. How do you know what you're going to get on the other side?
Well, the Albertans have been very clear that they want to be just left alone with their guns. Ottawa.
Now you're talking about another issue, guns.
Well, right. It's all these issues. It's gun, it's gender, it's
so how does separating just resolve all these political issues for you?
Well, because the majority of Britons, I've already said, are being very clear what they want, and
On all these
the
issues,
federal
yeah,
government,
yeah.
the federal government has told them to go pound sand all along, and so a great example of
All
this
so
is
all the vast majority of Albertans agree on all these issues, and so when you separate, you're going to get your way, basically on all these issues
yes,
for
and
sure.
so, and well, of course, with the when the Americans decided that they were going to free themselves from the tyranny of Britain, there of course there's never a guarantee, but a friend of mine said it this way: you can stay on the Titanic, or you can get in a wooden lifeboat that's still seaworthy. And so,
I wouldn't
there's
get it
a
if
song
I were you.
by
I
the
wouldn't be
Friends.
in a boat off the coast of Venezuela because they'll nuke you,
Oh
and they
yeah,
ain't going to ask questions first.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like my friend said the other day, should I stay or should I go? If I stay, there will be trouble. If if I stay, it will be double. Well, there's no you after you read
So
Mark Carney's book Values, he that like
Mark
the
Carney's a politician.
destruction.
He's here today, gone tomorrow. How do you know that you're going to get the resolution on all these issues when you get to the other side?
Well, of course, like
How
I said
does
before,
how does separating
there's
resolve
there's
these things for you?
there's no guarantee. But if you look
Right.
at the Alberta Bill of Rights, which the majority of Burtons
Which won't
have
apply. It's
already
irrelevant.
said,
It's irrelevant.
sorry.
It's irrelevant. You're separating. None of that will come into play anymore.
That's assuming that the people that have already had their say and made it very clear and
You
brought in a
separate.
bunch
None of that will
laws.
apply anymore.
Well, because we won't have Bill C9, we won't have all these.
You won't have
draconian-
anything anymore. You're going to have a clean slate, basically.
That's right. So we can set it up correctly.
How do
So
you
that's
resolve
the whole
it? Set
point.
it up correctly. How do you make sure that you get what you want on the other
Well,
side?
We could
These issues.
with first of all, the foundation of the American Constitution, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch are based on the Trinity. They're based on the idea of God the Father.
I get it, but you're
Jesus,
talking about
and the Holy Spirit.
gun laws and gun rights. Have they resolved
Right.
the gun issue in the United States with their system, the system that you want to
They
duplicate up here?
certainly. But if you actually do your homework, what people will find is that the problems in America are not based on the foundation as a constitutional republic. The problems that are having in America mostly, almost exclusively, are as a result of communism. Communism infecting a
Well, I guess their system didn't protect them then, did it?
well,
Because they still have. Do they not have these same issues unresolved over in the United
you
States? Are they
can't-
not a source of constant debate?
So, they shouldn't be. I mean,
But they are.
see, the problem is that, it's interesting. America has what you might say that they have more problems because they're more free. But the reality is that
I don't think they're more free.
I mean, there's no the people that all the people that were on the caravans from South America coming to America weren't confused about whether or not America was the best country to be in right now. I mean, you have Iranians walking around fully aware and knowing that they could be in the wrong place at the wrong time and be on the end of an American missile. And they're literally parading in the streets, celebrating with American flags, Israeli flags, and Iranian flags.
Why
They're
is
not
Trump launching missiles and striking into the heart of Tehran, where the people that he wants to rise up and replace the government, and he's nuking those people too. It doesn't make sense to me. Why is he attacking the people that he wants to help him?
Well, the majority of the, if you look really closely at the targets that they're selecting, it's all IRGC, Revolutionary Guard, and terrorist tactics.
I don't know. It looks a little more widespread than that. But anyway, that's another issue we can deal with. I think we're coming back to Iran tomorrow night, but I think maybe Ukraine. But anyway, let's go back to the core question. How will separating guarantee that these issues that you've identified, gun issues,
first thing,
drug issues,
yeah, well, a lot
gender
of those,
ideology issues.
Well,
How's it going to resolve those things? Guaranteed for you.
Well, it's very simple. The people that are behind, that are working so desperately, that are, and most of, if not all of them, at some time were very, very proud to be Albertan and proud to be Canadian. But Canada is now a joke. I mean, the whole Canada.
You're not answering the question. You're just crapping on the country, and not answering the question.
Well, I'm not. See, we should be crapping on the Liberals. I mean, for 10 years they've been surgically sexually mutilating children. Like, everybody that has any shred of decency should be up in arms and absolutely.
So how are you going to make sure that these issues are resolved?
Well, we're going to have a constitutional republic that is not based on communist liberal ideology. And that's it in a nutshell.
These are issues that people debate. These are issues that even on the US side, which has a system that you want to duplicate, these are issues that are not resolved over there. So why would they magically be resolved in Alberta just because you separate and then duplicate the system?
Well, the short answer to that is a bad America is much preferable to a good China. You cannot duplicate something horrible and then expect it to be good. Everybody knows.
I see a lot of pretty horrible things down there, Brandon.
Oh yeah, of course.
I see drugged out, burned out people, zombies in a lot of U.S. cities. I've been over to Detroit a lot of times, and a lot of the burned out areas over there. A lot of problems over there that I don't see over here in Canada, like really serious problems. A lot more guns shooting people, a lot more of that. I see a lot more poverty, like serious poverty.
Okay, so
I also see a lot more wealth.
Yeah,
I see good. I see bad.
So do you know the top 30 murder capitals in America? Who runs them?
Oh, you're going to say it's all Democrats. Well, okay.
Yes.
Right. So what are you going to do to make sure? What are you going to do when you separate to make sure that doesn't happen in Alberta?
Well, there is no guarantees. So now some people say, well, there's no guarantee, so don't try. And I want my kids. Canada is a joke. I'm sorry. It's not. You cannot. Well, you cannot look at.
Do you have a conservative government in Alberta right now?
That's right. And so we don't have any surgical sexual mutilation of children in Alberta. Mm-hmm. So the Albertans said, no, we are not going to tolerate. We are not going to tolerate.
So from your perspective, then, issue resolved.
We're gonna. No, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
You cited that as one of your core issues. You just told me now that they're not doing it out there. So issue resolved. There's one. What else?
Well, it's not really resolved. They're still shooting up kids with hormone blockers for 16 and 17-year-olds.
And how does separating from Alberta, from Canada, resolve that? See, my point is, Brandon, you're trying to, like, there's only one way that you're going to get what you want guaranteed. Authoritarianism. The only way that you can guarantee these things is to take issues that are really election issues, okay, and then put them into the Constitution so they can never be changed, so that you dictate to other people how to live.
Which is what every country does.
No.
Okay, so who doesn't do that? Well,
actually, we don't. There's a limits on.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I just told you, Rick, that Bill C-4 puts me in prison for 5 years for telling a child he's a boy when the monsters want to cut his genitals off. Like the liberals did that, and they've supported it for 10 years. So that's why anything is preferable. Albertans are willing and happy to take the risk to start a new nation, to have a new constitution.
You just said that issue largely resolved, that they don't do the genital mutilation anymore.
That's right, because we did something about it, but we can't do anything. But we can.
So you did something about it.
Well, that's right.
Because the system allows you to do something about it. And it's not dictatorial. These are political issues. These are issues of choice. These are issues of freedom. And you are welcome to oppose people on a particular issue and debate and give good arguments and then hopefully get the resolution that you want. But if other people don't want that in a democracy, and a true democracy, then people can push back and want something back the other way.
Well, yeah, we've been doing that for 100 years and it hasn't worked.
Because you didn't get what you wanted. Now what you're really saying is you want a new constitution that gives you what you want so that they can't have what they want because you don't have the majority, because you don't have enough people behind your position. And so you're saying the majority has to do what the minority wants, and we're going to put it in the Constitution to get what we want. And we're going to enshrine it in the Constitution as a constitutional right to limit other people's rights because we don't believe in freedom at all.
Well, it's actually completely the opposite.
Well, that's exactly what you're laying out for me, because you can't tell me how this resolves anything by separating.
In America, all the whole world isn't stupid. The whole world understands that America is the place to come to.
I don't think so.
Well, I'm not aware of any caravans that came to Canada. We
have all kinds of people who want to come to Canada all the time. We have you're sitting there saying we have too much immigration, well, actually at the beginning you're like we love immigrants, but then I also hear you saying we've got too many immigrants. I don't know which side of the coin you're on there.
Well, you can. It's one and the same thing. It's like, see, the problem with the radical left is they're always playing a zero-sum game. If you have a concern with immigration, you're a racist bigot. If you don't have, like,
do you have a concern with immigration?
Well, when you see that we have so many people dying and the wait lists for every single medical procedure almost under the sun is ridiculously long, it's clear as the nose on your face. You actually have to be lying to believe that there isn't a critical.
Okay, so why does separation solve that? Because that, again, is a political issue. It's something that we're wrestling with as a country. Immigration numbers, I've cited that as a problem. We have too many people just in general coming in. We don't have, enough the capacity to respond fast enough to build enough homes. It's putting stress on our medical system to some degree. It's putting stress on other social services, including education and so on. And so we need to moderate that so that we get a better outcome for everyone, including the new people coming to Canada.
Trudeau said on national television, there is no Canadian identity. He said we are the first post-nation state. So I'm going to vomit if I never hear another person attempt to make a claim about being proud to be Canadian. No, the guy that you voted for says there's no such thing as a Canadian, and they said it for 9 straight years. And then when Carney comes along, elbows up, Carney, oh, now we're going to be all patriotic about Canada. Carney didn't have, I mean, there's never been a time in history where a government that has run $50 billion deficits for a decade got reelected. That's never happened. And so, well, what was happened? Carney's whole campaign was, I'm not Trump. And so people fell for it. And we don't want to be communists anymore. And if the rest of the country,
we're not. Well, first of all, we're not a communist country. And Trudeau's quote, not fully understood. I didn't understand it when I was presented with it. I was being fed that quote through conservative media, but upon further reflection and further research to fully understand what he was saying at the time, it's a more complex phrase. It doesn't mean what you think it means.
No,
you think that it means Canada
exactly.
isn't a country.
All you have to do is look at what he says about us. How long are we going to tolerate these people? Well, a lot of the people, like that doctor in New Brunswick, that said people who don't take the thingy should be punched in the face, and he wouldn't cry at their funerals. Well, he got the third thingy, and now he's dead. So I've
how does separating solve any of that?
Because the people in Alberta have already made it very clear.
No, they haven't. No, they haven't,
Yes,
Brandon.
they have.
No, they
Very
haven't.
much.
In fact,
Yes.
you have a very divided province, just as we have a very divided country, a very divided electorate, just like the United States has never been more divided. Separating doesn't solve any of your problems.
Absolutely, it does.
How?
Absolutely
You can't even tell me how. Because you see, you're trying to purge.
Every time I give you an answer, you refuse to accept it.
No, every time you give me false or incomplete information, I highlight it.
So, the
Sorry,
the government killed. Okay, the government killed.
You keep, you know what it comes down to, Brandon, is all of these are
$20 billion.
These are
okay?
These are issues. These are political issues. These are political issues.
Yes, that
and
cannot get solved,
and
because
these are all ideas. These are parts of ideologies. And what you're saying is what you think is going to happen is not going to happen. You think that you're going to separate, and then this liberal ideology will be purged from Alberta, and that these ideas will be washed away, and that you're going to have some conservative utopia of some kind, I guess, where all these problems will be solved. But if you're going to have any kind of a democracy, which you don't really seem to want, but if you're going to have any kind of democracy, then you have to put up with people who disagree with you. And these other people in your province, probably about half or more, I think more at this point, because you can't seem to get what you really want. You've got a lot of people out there who vote for the NDP. You've had an NDP government.
Yeah, we
right?
did have
So what are you going to do? Are you going to round them all up and ship them out? Because they still have those same ideas the day after the referendum.
Absolutely, completely, and totally. I'll be kind and just say hyperbolic to make those kind of statements and claim. I mean, it's this.
What's hyperbolic? What are you talking about?
Why we want to leave? Because of people like Senator Simmons that says a lot of this emotion is. It's xenophobic, it's racist, it's misogynist, it's anti-woman, it's blah blah blah.
Where
all
do you
these
think?
things.
Where do you
And
think
so
she gets that?
We're
Why do you think she thinks that?
because the liberal hive mind cannot have common
No.
sense thoughts of their own.
Oh,
They just make up insane tropes. Alberta's sick and tired of being crapped on. $650 billion, and the Liberals have been in all-out war on Alberta, and we're done with it. I mean, we had 4 guys arrested at the Coots border by the RCMP. So we would get rid of all the communist RCMP officers, and we would welcome all
communists.
the RCMP officers.
There's a word that's thrown around a lot.
Well, look,
You know?
have you read the list of communist goals since 1963?
Yeah, I have. I'm
okay. Then you should.
Canada is not a communist country.
Be arguing. All right, what are you talking about? They're going to put me in prison for telling my child that not to cut off their wiener because the Bible says
that in itself. Okay, that in itself is very debatable.
I don't want.
Let me ask you again. You know, because there's an issue I've commented on.
This.
I'm not. It's not about where I stand on that particular issue. It's about where I stand on the issue of freedom and democracy and due process and the rule of law.
Okay, well, then
those are the things, and the Constitution.
Then, if that's true, if what you just said is true, then you should hate Carney's guts.
Why is that?
Because he's bribing a bunch of people that were democratically elected to cross the floor. So
really?
I don't want to hear anybody.
He's bribing them. Show me. I keep hearing people say that.
Are you kidding me?
What's where? Show me the bribes.
Yeah. So
show me.
Okay.
Everybody what's he bribing them with?
Nobody goes across the floor unless they're promised something.
Have floor crossings happened before?
Yeah, and I was against them then also.
They've always happened.
Right. So anyways,
are actually part of a democratic process.
Mark Carney.
No, I'm not. I'm defending Canada, and I'm saying that you've had floor crossings from this party to that party and that party to this party.
You care about democracy, Rick. If you cared about democracy, you would hate what Mark Carney is doing to try to overturn elections in order to get his majority.
Actually, the opposite is true again. The opposite is true.
That's a joke, Rick.
No, because what members of parliament are doing by crossing the floor is exercising their democratic right and maybe duty to represent their constituents in the best way that they see fit without being held to the rules of a party. And they're stepping outside of the party in order to do what they feel is right at the time. So they have the ability and the right to do that.
So that's my wife.
Hi, wife.
That's Grena. So
welcome to the great debate.
so nobody can tell me they can tell me.
So if you get elected as a member of parliament, you think that the MP must stay with the party, vote with the party, do whatever the party says. If the party rep says you vote yes on this, you must vote yes on that. You don't have a choice. You have to do exactly what you're told. You don't have a choice, no matter what. Is that what you're saying?
I totally believe that people should have their right to choose, but that is not the same thing. You're making a false equivalency.
No, I'm not making a false equivalency.
That's not comparing apples to apples.
What you're making.
The people that voted, if I was a conservative and I wanted to become a liberal, then I should quit and run again. That not cross the floor. I mean, all those people. I would be furious. Let me tell you, I would be furious if the person that I voted for crossed the floor. And so anybody that claims they support democracy has zero credibility,
because the only way to support democracy is to make sure that you force a member of parliament to vote in a particular way. And you don't even know when you're elected what the issues of the day are going to be or the issues of the time. The issues are in flux all the time. And there are all kinds of different issues that come up that may not even be related directly to legislation. So there could be a lot of reasons why someone crosses the floor. There could be corruption in your party that maybe you become aware of. And so you feel like the best way to represent your constituents is to leave that party and cross the floor and join the other party in order to fight the corruption on the side that you were elected upon. Now, you're going to pay a price for that, maybe when it comes time for re-election, because the party won't support you anymore. And even as a sitting MP, you won't be sitting as a liberal or a conservative, regardless of which way you go. But if you truly believe in democracy, that's part of the beauty of the Canadian system, is that no matter what, a member of parliament always has the right, always has the ability to vote with their conscience and vote with their heart and vote for what they think is right at the given time. They may go against the party policies, platform, vote against what their party whip wants, but you always have that ability. And I'll tell you this, I think that if the issues were aligned in a way that you needed someone to vote against their party to get you what you wanted, with regard to the gender ideology issue, you would be applauding a member of parliament for having the bravery to stand up to their party and vote for what you want. Right? In fact, I've heard exactly that argument leveled against even the Governor General and even the King, as far as giving royal assent to legislation that people don't agree with. Well, it's obviously a dictatorship because he gave royal assent to this piece of legislation, to this bill that I disagree with, and he should have voted against it by refusing to sign it. You see,
Well,
but these are other issues. I'm just saying, Brandon, that democracy is democracy and freedom is freedom. And if you want to if you want true freedom, then a member of parliament needs the freedom to vote in any way that they see fit on any given issue. Now, they may choose to vote for a variety of reasons in favor of something that maybe they're not even in favor of in order to get something else on something else. But the point is, that freedom is there in our system. And I'm glad it's there, because if you are dealing with a really serious issue, then that maybe you don't agree with, or maybe is even immoral, but maybe the legislation isn't predicated on on legislating morality or whatever it might be. But if it's maybe an issue of going to war, who knows what the issue could be. But the MPs always have the ability to vote against the prime minister's wishes and against the party whip if they so choose. Yeah, up to and including crossing the floor. It has happened many, many times in our system. Hell, man, it's even you cited something very important yourself. Ronald Reagan used to be a Democrat. Then he became a Republican. He crossed the floor.
That was a personal choice. That wasn't.
So too is it a personal choice with every one of these MPs.
Well, right,
and every one of them risks something more when they do that, because getting reelected the next time, very difficult if you've crossed the floor, because now you have alienated the base of support that you've had in your home constituency. And the people who voted for you, the people who put you there, that's your grassroots party support. And the party isn't going to support you anymore. And the party that you cross over to, they probably won't support you either, because if you're a conservative, you cross over to become a liberal, the Liberal Riding Association, those people, they probably have somebody else in mind to replace you for the next election. So chances are, as a floor crosser, that's probably the last time you're ever going to be elected. So they're going to pay a price coming out the other side, very likely. It's just not that simple.
Well, maybe to me it's very simple. You don't go into a political role.
You're just upset because it didn't go your way.
No, there's a difference between good and evil, and this is the problem. The liberals think there's good, and then there's this gray area in the middle, and then there's evil. Well, if anything has made it
so crossing is evil
of our political system, well, you have the Leave the Walk Away movement in the States, which was started by a gay Hillary voter when he realized that he wasn't allowed to think for himself in this party. And so you can go on YouTube and see thousands of videos where people that were gay, lesbian, all these, Chinese, every single color of the rainbow, and everything, saying why they left the Democratic Party. Okay. And the liberal government is doing everything in its power to make Canada not to take away democracy. That the Liberals do not believe in democracy. Alberta has been trying for 100 years to get a fair shake. We still have six senators.
Why do you say 100 years? Why 100 years? Like you're going all the way back to the founding of Alberta, I guess, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us about that.
Because almost barely after the ink was dry, that was when the government started robbing Alberta.
Whoa. What do you mean after the ink was dry? Explain what you mean by that. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Ink was dry.
The government made it so the farmers had to give them the grain. Then the government sold the grain and kept profits, and then gave the leftovers to the farmers. And that's where it started. And then when Alberta got oil, it was just more of the same thing. And so we still have, PEI has 4 senators and Alberta has 6. They have 200,000 people. We have 5 million. The Liberals could easily do something about this.
So what you're going back like 100 years, like what you're going back to what is it?
No, I'm
back like to create. So what was it? You're saying at the beginning of Alberta, it was like, tell me how Alberta was started and what all that's about, and why. Where's the foundation of all this come from?
So I'll read this again. We desire that the great trade of the prairies shall go to enrich our people to the east, to build our factories and our places of work in every legitimate way to our prosperity. That's Clifford Sifton, the Minister of Interior, in 1904, a year before Alberta signed. The plan signed into Confederation. And so to this day, Alberta has 6 senators. If we were represented correctly population-wise, we would have 25 senators. We have, PEI has 1 senator for every 50,000 people. Alberta has 1 senator for every 833,000 people. So it's impossible for us to get treated fairly democratically. We've done that, tried 100 years. We've tried everything. It doesn't work. We even elected our own senators. And so we've had senators and elected senators in waiting, ready to be appointed by the government. And the Liberals said, go F yourself. We don't care if you elect senators. We're going to appoint whoever the heck we want. And so, I mean, during the Trudeau fiasco,
the senator, what was the name of the senator that you mentioned at the beginning? What was her name?
The one that screams how we're all racist, bigots, and homophobes. Yeah, Paula Simmons.
She's from Alberta.
Right, but she wasn't democratically elected.
She's just not on your side.
She wasn't, but I can't be on the side with communists. So it's very simple. If you're fine with surgically sexually mutilating children, you are a communist, and I cannot be on your side. It's that simple.
She's still from Alberta.
It's a difference.
You got one from Alberta, and you're just not happy with her.
Well, but we democratically elected a number of senators, and they were never chosen.
Well, I can't speak to that because the Senate is a Senate of appointments. So, and it's a chamber of sober second thought.
But your point is that you keep repeating over and over and over again that it's just the way it is, and it's democracy. No, it's not a democracy.
It is a democracy.
We elect somebody, and they say, "Go F yourself." We don't care if you.
No, they don't say "Go F yourself." Are you kidding me? Brandon, do you know how much of a voice Alberta has? Especially over the last
Zero.
No.
What are you talking about?
You have a voice right here. You have a voice. All people are talking about these days is Alberta separatism.
Well, right.
You're
But
you're
they
you're,
don't.
you're
They don't know. They don't know
you
the
have a
real legitimate
disproportionate.
reasons why.
You dominate in political discourse right now in Canada.
Well, why do you think
Alberta
that is?
is like,
Why do you think that is?
because you do have a voice, because
No,
you do
that's
matter.
not why.
Yes,
No,
it
no, no.
is.
That is not why. The reason why is the big media that got $1 billion to support all their sorry butts, because nobody's buying a lot of their crap because it's crap, and so they had to be all bailed out. When business went under, I didn't get a bailout, and so all these media,
It's not that simple either,
they
though.
want they if Alberta leaves, the gravy train ends. No more
Yeah.
money because they couldn't afford it, because and
Yeah.
and so that's what they want, and they're gonna show me a newspaper, the Mop
So
and Pail,
you have all the
or the
money
Toronto Scum,
because you have all the oil. So you get to tell everybody what to do.
No, we've capitally been ripped off and treated like crap for 100 years.
Right.
And now, as the abused spouse by an alcoholic abuser, we're finally saying, we're done. We're done with being abused.
Mhm.
We're done with, I mean, why cannot we?
So you want to be just like the United States?
No, better.
Better.
That's why we don't want
So you're going to separate, and then you
Why would
think
you
that
be
you
the
think
first
that
state?
you think that separating is going to solve all your money problems.
Basically, yeah.
Oh.
In Saudi Arabia, they don't have income tax. In Saudi Arabia, we have almost as much oil as they do. Why is Quebec buying 50 billion, though they get billions? They've got $500 billion from Confederation. Why don't they buy their oil from Alberta?
Do you have sales
But no,
tax
they
out
don't.
there?
They actually canceled natural gas.
Oh, you keep coming back to that.
Well, yeah, because it's
go
relevant.
get your proof. It's not relevant because it's irrelevant now because it's been reversed. Anyway,
No, Quebec. No, Carney doesn't have control over whether or not Quebec does natural gas pipelines or not. And
yeah,
if he
well,
did,
actually,
he
they
wouldn't
do.
care.
They do. You could do what Polyev wants, and you could ram it through using Section 92.
But that's the point. They don't want to. They're trying to destroy Canada's economy, so we go broke like Russia. And then when we go broke like Russia, all our natural resources are going to be sold off to the World Economic Forum.
Where do you sell your oil right now? Brandon, where does Alberta sell its oil? Where does your oil go?
It has to go to the States to be
right. Why do you think that is?
Because there wasn't anybody smart enough in Alberta or in the federal government, for that matter, to build our own refinery.
Now there's one in Sarnia, not very far from here. We have some refineries in Canada.
But we could be selling gas to Germany. But
why do you think your oil goes to the United States?
Because it's heavy crude, and because they have a facility
because
in the States to do this.
We should have our own. No. Because of politics. Because the United States wants the oil. Because the United States wants to dominate the oil industry. They want to control the oil. They want to make sure that oil doesn't flow east-west. Well, those big U.S. oil companies have been doing their very best. No. You're missing the point, my friend.
Well, no, I'm not missing the point.
Yes, you are.
I know exactly what I'm talking about.
How much of a discount do you have to sell your oil to the United States for?
Like, Rick, how many people can you trust, that love and support the surgical sexual mutilation of children?
You keep coming. No, we're talking about oil right now. We've been down that road.
Well, right, but
I didn't even get to address the maid issue.
You're trying to convince me that Mark Carney has all these wonderful, great.
I'm talking about no. You just get so fixated. Listen, I'm asking you a question. Do you know how much of a discount Alberta sells its oil to the United States for?
$20 a barrel
How much?
discount because they're processing it. $20
Yeah, but why?
a barrel.
Yeah, but why? Why is it sold at a discount?
Liberals,
No, why is it sold at a discount? Because you have a singular market. About 97% of all the oil that comes out of the ground gets shipped to the United States from Alberta.
We could be selling to 4 other countries and the liberals shut it down.
Yeah, well, there's politics involved there.
Well,
so how does separating solve that for you?
You're giving the liberals a free pass.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Well,
I'm laying out the reality of this.
Do you know how many jobs do you know how many jobs lost in Alberta?
How does separating solve your... We've already talked about the job losses, and we've already discussed that.
No, we haven't.
Yes, we have.
What is it?
You said 84,000 in Canada.
No, it was 170,000.
Over what period of time?
During about 6 years, 5 years of.
So this is a different stat over a different period of time. And you have oil booms and you have oil busts. And that's the other thing about Alberta is you're not self-sufficient. You can't even staff what you have out there during times of boom. That's why so many Canadians migrate to Alberta during times of oil booms, because there's a lot of money to be made in the oil patch and a lot of work when the price goes up. Oh, by the way, the war in Iran will help you with that because the price has inflated a lot. So you'll be getting a lot more per barrel, but you'll still be selling it at a discount to our American friends who have capitalized. Well, that's not a good word. Better word. Have exploited the Alberta market from the beginning of time since the discovery of oil in Alberta. They've always been getting their oil for the refineries at a discount. That's how much of a friend they are. $20 a barrel discounted. How much has that cost Alberta over time?
The Liberal government could have built.
No, that's Americans, my friend. That's big U.S. oil money. And they've influenced the politics out there in Alberta since the discovery of oil. And they still do today. They pump a lot of money into Canadian media, especially Canadian conservative media.
Yeah.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
It's a demonstrable fact.
Yeah.
Well, am I wrong?
Am
I wrong? We even have some U.S. ownership of media up here in Canada. Sun newspaper.
I don't believe Quebec has its own.
That's another issue. I'm talking about your oil going to the United States, and there is a pipeline that goes to the West Coast right now. Why do you think it's so hard to get a pipeline built to the West Coast? Where would that oil go?
Because the province of BC are radical terrorists.
Radical terrorists. Okay. Where's the oil? Brandon?
They allow Saudi tankers in there, but they don't allow
Alberta. Okay, so if you separate, is that going to solve the problem of getting your oil out to the West Coast?
Well, it's
through BC.
Very simple. It's very simple how that's going to go. First, BC is very dependent on Alberta oil. So it would be extremely difficult to run everything they need to run without Alberta oil. That's one. Number two, the United Nations law dictates that any nation that is landlocked must be given access to tidewater. That's two. Three, BC has to transport a ton of product.
Which law?
Sorry?
Which law? Which international law says you must be given access to tidewater?
United Nations global law. It's not United Nations, but it's international law is the
so now we're worried about rules-based international order, which Trump has rejected. Your U.S. system, he doesn't give a damn. He's made it very clear. Goes to war without consulting allies, says poo-poo to NATO.
Well, so
doesn't recognize international law at all.
Carney, and ask him for assistance.
Well, that's, you're just throwing these phrases around. I'm looking at what's actually going on.
Okay, so Rick, go
50.
This is communist goals from 1963.
No, dude. No, I'm looking at what's going on right here. We've already talked about that. You keep coming back to these talking points, these spinning this.
Well, because that's what's
We've got a guy in the White House who's threatening to take over our country.
No,
we've got a guy. He's what?
Not threatening to go over, take over.
Oh no! What's the 51st state rhetoric all about?
Yeah, because he was poking fun at Trudeau.
Oh, I see. He's just joking.
All he was doing.
He's just joking, is he? He's joking about Greenland. Is he joking about Cuba? Is that why he has warships and armada blockading Cuba? You say that there's international law that guarantees access to tidewater, and they're not letting any energy in. Hang on a minute.
Defend communism the whole show.
I'm defending freedom. I'm defending international law. Yes, I am.
No, there's hundreds of thousands of.
So is it okay? So you think it's okay for the United States to just blockade a whole country and prevent food, medicine, energy, water from getting into the country, to starve them out?
So are you going to show me a story somewhere that shows that Cuba, somebody's starving in Cuba?
Yeah, there's all kinds of. They've been talking about it since Trump sent them down there, dude.
How do we know that those are true? I mean, the media.
Oh, I see. So it's all fake, is it? All the interviews, all the people talking about the garbage that's piling up in the streets because they don't have fuel to run the garbage trucks right now. These problems that are being created in Cuba. That this is, and it's not just me saying it. It's Trump. He's bragging about it. Well, this is what they're doing. This is your system that you want. Is that what you're going to do when you get your separated Alberta? You're going to start rounding up all the people you disagree with or disagree with you and deporting them all because they disagree with you?
Well, that's when the radical left.
What about the radical right? What about the radical Christian movement? What about the people who just want to be authoritarians?
There isn't a radical right.
There isn't a radical right?
Well, who's the radical right? There's nothing more radical than a liberal. Like, they're off the rails.
Yeah. Well, sometimes
Albertans are like straight up normal.
They're
compared to
all of you. All the Albertans are normal.
Well,
you don't have any diversity in thought. Everybody thinks the same.
In the country that doesn't allow little girls to be surgically sexually
so you're going to legislate.
Arguing with that.
So you're going to legislate that. You're not going to legislate it. You're going to constitutionally enshrine some sort of a right. How would you solve that? Okay, so tell me what that looks like.
You just have a constitutional republic. It's very simple.
They haven't resolved that in the United States, and they have a constitutional republic.
Yeah, Trump wrote an executive order to end it. So that's when you have strong leadership.
Unitary executive power of the Sharpie.
Getting mutilated.
And then the next president comes in and can change that.
Yeah, he could.
Good.
But the responsibility for the correct governance of a nation is not only on the government. The people have to step up to the plate. And
I don't see how having a constitutional republic solves anything if you're just talking about executive orders. And I'll tell you this, people sit and scream and yell about Carney being a dictator and saying we don't have a democracy. In fact, we do, because the prime minister himself only gets one vote, dude. One vote. Now, he can push a particular platform and get his MPs to try to vote with him using various means, even try to get MPs from other parties to vote with him. But the prime minister only gets one vote. But you know what the president of the United States has through a constitutional republic? Unitary executive power through the power of the Sharpie and an executive order. And he can abuse that unitary executive power, as has Trump, by using his various levers of power to purge political opposition from the bureaucracy. More than that, every single one of our ministers in the Canadian system, in our Westminster parliamentary democracy, every single one of them elected Minister of Defense, Minister
many
of
people
Finance
did
Minister.
Trudeau kick
Let
out
me
of the
say, no,
party?
I'm not finished. I'm not finished. Not quite yet. I'll let you go in a sec. But in the United States, RFK Jr., Kristi Noem, Pete Hegseth, you go down the list of all these people in the Trump administration, not one of them elected, not one of them selected by the president. Your attorney general, you keep going down the line. All of them beholden to him. They serve at the pleasure of the president, not the people. They do what he says or gonzo. They ain't elected. And when they're gone, they're gone. Their jobs depend on it. They better do what he says, or just like Jeff Sessions, if when he tried to do the right thing, when he was the original attorney general to Trump, but you won't see that happening with Pam Bondi. She's a mouthpiece for him, a defender. She's using the law to defend the president no matter what he does, even if he breaks the law. If Mark Carney signed even one thing through some sort of executive order, people would be screaming bloody murder on the conservative side
ridiculous.
up here.
The Jody Wilson-Raybould,
Yeah.
Trudeau kicked her out of the party, which was totally
she wasn't with his party actually, but she had a position. Yeah.
So
fired her from her position, but she wasn't kicked out of government. You can replace your finance minister, but the finance minister still has a position as a member of parliament.
That stepped up to the plate. Trudeau fired her too.
From those appointments, but they're still elected politicians. They still represent their constituents, and they still get to vote. Well, you can't defend it. Floor is yours. Why is it better? It's not better. In fact, the United States isn't a democracy at all.
It's 100 times better. Millions of refugees that will tell their story over and over and over again, how blessed they are to be an American citizen, and they would the stories on YouTube go forever. Yeah. Whereas with Canada, you have people leaving and moving to Nicaragua because it's a hellhole. I have so many friends. I have Chinese friends. I have Ukrainian friends. I have Russian friends. I have Romanian friends, Polish friends, and all of them are like, I left a communist country.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong about these people in the Trump administration being selected? Name me anybody that was elected to these positions.
That doesn't. There's probably a million Canadian bureaucrats that are elected.
Those are not. We have a cabinet, and you have
democracy in this country.
No, yes, we do.
Democracy.
Why? Because of the Dominion voting machines.
No, because the Freedom Convoy was found to be illegal as it was.
Yeah.
And there was no consequences.
There are consequences.
And instead, the government reopened the case and retried it. That doesn't happen in America. Once it's found illegal, it's illegal.
Yeah.
They don't retry it. But because Trudeau wanted to get away with his jackboot thugs, and that's a direct quote from the RCMP, by the way. That's not me exaggerating. That's RCMP texts said, yeah, wait till they see our jackboots on the ground tomorrow.
Yeah.
They literally shot with a tear gas canister a rebel news reporter.
Oh my. Yeah, I know. And I also blah blah blah. I know all that. I also see American citizens being shot in the face and killed in the United States by ICE. There's a far cry between a tear gas canister and being shot to death in the street multiple times.
If you're
Alex Preddy,
if you're endangering the life of the ICE agent, you should be shot in the face.
Right.
That's very simple. Don't break the law. Like, why does the
It
radical
is,
left,
yeah.
the radical left always has more sympathy for the criminals than the victims?
So Alex Preddy was a criminal? How many times was he shot? 10 times, I think.
Yeah. And
What did he do wrong to deserve to be shot and killed?
If he was doing what the officer told him to do, he wouldn't have got shot. No officers want to shoot anybody. And a black professor,
if the Freedom Convoy protesters didn't do what the officers told them to do, should they have been shot in the face?
they weren't breaking the law, Rick. So
Weren't
you're
they?
totally wrong in this.
Actually, they were clearing them up because they may have been in violation of law.
100% wrong here. Own it.
I'm 100% wrong? I don't
Yeah.
know about that.
If you could do one thing on the show,
Yeah.
admit once on the show that you're wrong.
Sometimes I'm wrong, but I'm not wrong about this. I'm asking you a
You're
question.
100%
See,
wrong.
no, I'm asking you a question. See, the thing is, Brandon, you don't think the Freedom Convoy protesters should have been shot because you on their side, but you're not on this. But you think Alex Preddy should deserved to be shot 10 times because you're not on his side.
It's following. Are they following the law or not? It's that simple.
Well, the Freedom.
What time is it? It's
Freedom Convoy protesters were not following the law. They were told to leave, and they didn't.
They were. Yeah, they were following the law.
No,
they were
weren't.
following the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
They still overstayed, and they were told to clear out, and because they were in breach, they should have left, but they didn't.
Yeah,
so
it was illegal. It was illegal.
Yeah, it was. So did they deserve to be killed?
No, but any person, but they were following the.
It gets it's confusing, isn't it?
Natives. Trudeau got the RCMP when the natives were protesting on Parliament Hill.
Mm-hmm.
He brought them tea and cakes. Okay, he wouldn't even meet with the convoy. All right, they
were threatening to kill him, so maybe that might be why.
And
look, man. I think that the Freedom Convoy was a good thing in many ways, and also there were some parts of it that were not good.
Yeah.
That came to the surface over time.
I'm dying here, so
yeah. Well, I'm just gonna come back to my apple.
Yeah.
You think that Alberta holds all the cards and that you deserve more because you have all the oil?
No.
I
really wish we could. Is there some way you could do a chat in the future?
Yeah, we can. But let me just finish with this. Just a point, okay? You guys out there being told how abused you've been, how you've been taken advantage of. The reality is Canada has one of the highest standards of living in the world. And it's not just about money. It's about quality of life. Albertans, whether you care to acknowledge it or not, you have one of the highest standards of living in the world. And you have a very high quality of life. In fact, if you go and look at various studies and surveys and reports internationally, Canada consistently ranks higher than the United States in both of those departments. Per capita income, Canada, on average, ranking closer to the bottom with some of the less affluent U.S. states. But overall, pretty comparable, and the quality of life is much higher. Because we have not communism, but we have some socialism, including a healthcare system that probably saved your friend's life, that got my dad a new hip, that equalizes things for people who are less fortunate because it's humane, moral, because our government isn't trying to kill us all, they're trying to help people. I could talk to you more about the MAID thing because I've had a personal experience with it. And frankly, I'm against MAID as it stands in its current form. But I'm also disgusted by the way it has been politicized and is being used as a political weapon by some people. Because they're lying about some of the numbers. The number you gave is also, even on the MAID issue, very misleading. And it's used consistently over and over again. The numbers I'm seeing coming out of the conservative right, which I've been part of, on things like COVID, mRNA, way out to lunch, all designed to scare people. As bad as, probably way worse, actually, than what I've seen come out of the mainstream media, which in some cases is corrupt, Brandon, and has spread falsities in order to scare people during the pandemic. There are reasons for that. Alberta, you've been fed a story about how you've been so abused because some people want what you have. They want your oil. Your oil flows to the United States at consistently at about $20 a barrel per barrel discount to those U.S. refineries. Those big U.S. oil companies want your oil. They want to make sure, because right now you have a conservative, it's not a conservative government. This Trump administration, it's very authoritarian, and he's decided he's going to go around to all these oil-rich countries, and including Canada, to secure the oil. He doesn't want that oil going where? To the West Coast. Why? Because where would that oil go? To Asia. When we say Asia in Canada, we say places like Japan, but what we really mean is China. And Trump won't have that. He's the guy who is injecting politics into Canada in order to make sure that pipeline don't get built. And yes, there might be corruption in the Liberal Party and in the Conservatives and among First Nations, because when they line the pockets of certain people, when big oil comes up here and they start getting involved in Canadian politics and they line the pockets of certain media people, feed certain podcasters, inject money into political activist groups out in Alberta, yeah, they come down on the right side of the issue to make sure that, yeah, well, they pretend that they want that pipeline built. At the same time, they launch legal lawsuits through fake, even political activist groups to create blockades and delays to pipelines being built. And then it complicates things and things don't seem to make sense. See, you separate and you're screwed. Because if you separate, and you can't even make a good argument for it, except that you're going to think you're going to get lower taxes, honestly, because you're framing it all, you're justifying it all, you're trying to promote the idea of Alberta separatism with all of these election issues. These are all issues that even if you separate, they'll still be present because half your population votes NDP. What are you going to do? Force them to just not think the way they think? You're going to just get rid of those people? Those issues will still be present the day after you vote for separation. But you're really going to be screwed because now you won't have the power of the federal government to help you get those pipelines built east-west. You're going to be stuck with one customer, one, the US of A. And do you think that they're going to give you the right to vote? No, because you want to remain independent. You're only 5 million people. You're going to need your own military. You're going to need F-35s. Yeah. You're going to need all of these things, and that's going to jack up your taxes. Norway, so there go your savings.
Population, and they have a $1.8 trillion dollars.
And then these big U.S. oil companies are going to come up there, and they're already there, and they're going to make sure that that oil flows only one way to the United States, to the refineries. You go ask the people of Venezuela tonight, are they any richer now that the U.S. oil companies have moved in to take control of the Venezuelan oil?
They were super wealthy when they are.
Yeah, did that filter down to the people? No, it didn't. It never does.
Destroyed Venezuela.
That's why even in Iran, it's not about what happened in 1979. This war is not about that. It goes all the way back to 1953, my friend. And that's when the government there wanted to nationalize the oil because they wanted to ensure that 50% of Iranian oil stayed in the country to benefit the people. And the U.S. oil companies and the British oil companies at the time said, no, 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 no. Not going to happen. So they came in and overthrew the government and installed the Shah, who remained in power until 1979. And that sure as hell wasn't democracy. It may have introduced, some social freedoms, and there were some good things that came out of all of that, but it's just not that simple. And what's going on in Alberta is absolutely the result of foreign influence, U.S. influence, big oil money. And if you separate, you'll be at their mercy, because the only way right now, you're going to get your pipeline. You've already got one built out to the West Coast, and you will get more built with Canada, because the federal government will work through these negotiations and consultations with First Nations, but ultimately the power will reside with the federal government, who can push these through because the provinces can't stop it at that point. But it has to be done properly. It's just going to take a little bit more time, but Carney is getting it done. As I showed you, even with the LNG terminals that are being utilized now to ship that natural gas overseas, which you keep saying is just a lie, but I just showed you that they've laid this out and they're doing it. They're doing it. And more than that, this whole idea that somehow you're just going to free yourselves, you're going to box yourselves in. You say that you have a right to tidewater through international law, I suppose, but you have to pay for it. It doesn't necessarily come free. You see this apple? These are Gala apples. I like Honeycrisp. You can grow some Honeycrisp out there. But if you want a Gala apple, we grow them here in Ontario. I just happen to have some in the fridge tonight. These grow in Ontario. They don't grow very well out in Alberta. There are no real commercial apple orchards growing Gala apples out in Alberta. So if you want a Gala apple, we'll happily send it to you, but it's got to go across Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and then it's going to get out to you. That means crossing borders. That's two-way trade. You send oil, we send apples. Now, you think your oil is all that much more valuable? Well, you box yourself in. Maybe you ain't getting any Gala apples. Everything that you have, Brandon, every damn thing in that room, including those U.S. flags, came across a border. Everything, probably, including those U.S. flags, from some factory in China that then shipped it across from BC, then into Alberta, or from the Maritimes, Quebec, or maybe it was flown in someplace, but it crossed the borders. Because you're not alone. We're all in it together, man, in one way or another. And there's, value to certain things. Apples have a value too. You're fed a variety of foods because they come across borders. So we all work together. Tonight, our country, Canada, which is your part of it, man, we've got something to be incredibly proud of. They're building a spaceport in Nova Scotia. That's going to create new jobs, new opportunities. We're going to have our own satellite system. We're going to be launching rockets. We're going to be collaborating with the United States, our greatest friend in the world, allying with them, working more with NASA, maybe even with SpaceX, but we will be sovereign and independent, and we will have our own space industry here. And the people that we educate at our universities, our engineers, our scientists who have been going to the United States all these years to work down there, less so up here, that brain drain will stop. We'll keep those engineers here. We'll build our economy together. There's more in it for Alberta. And when we build those pipelines east-west, you're going to get more money for your oil because you'll be open to the world market, not just dependent on the United States. You won't have to sell it for $20 a barrel less. Do you get it?
Yeah,
Well, I'm sorry, man, but I'm not sorry. You're being fed a pack of lies by some corrupt separatist activists who have their own self-interests in mind. Whether it's all the things I've just mentioned or the Alberta Pension Fund that they want to set up because they want to raid the Canada Pension Plan. I've got news for them. The goddamn pension plan doesn't belong to them. It belongs to the people. It belongs to every worker.
Well, then why is Carney giving $100 billion out of it to India?
He's not.
Yeah, he is.
No,
Read
you
his
don't
book.
understand.
You gotta read
You
his
do
book.
not understand how it works.
We'll have to just cut it here.
No, you know what, Brandon? No,
now.
because you have run out of arguments, because you can't defend it, because the information you have is conflated.
No,
You're welcome to come back and we can continue this. But that pension plan,
that'd be great. I'll bring
well, we can maybe do that. But I'm just telling you, man, they're selling you a pack of lies.
Yeah.
A pack of lies. We love you out here. We don't want you to leave. I love you. You're my friend, whether you believe it or not tonight. But you are. I don't want you to go, man. I want to make you happy. I want you here. I think you should probably get a better deal.
Yeah,
I think you should.
You're the minority. That's the problem, though.
No. That's a lie too. It's a lie. People out here in Ontario don't go hating on you. They do not. You want me to go do streeters tomorrow? I'll go walk up and down. I'll ask people, do you think Alberta should leave? It's going to be overwhelming. No, we want Alberta to stay. We love Alberta. Well, I'm telling you, man.
Right. But so none of those people that claim they want, none of the people that claim they want Alberta to stay do anything to help Alberta. So it's like you can say, people can say whatever they want.
Why do you? I thought you had everything. Why do you need help? Like to help? Like I don't know, man. Like I think you're just looking for a grievance where you're just going to borrow trouble.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, you should get some more. You should interview Dr. Michael Wagner on this. He's written 3. Dr. Michael Wagner
on what? Separatism?
He's written about 5 books on.
But wait a minute, aren't you supposed to, but you're out there promoting this. This is why you're on the program tonight, right? Which I forgot to preface with the interview with tonight. You're out there, you're one of these, what is it, a canvasser? Trying to get people to sign?
Actually, I am a canvasser, yes.
Yeah, and then you're also promoting this through podcasts and doing programs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Because Alberta could have a $1.8 trillion sovereign wealth fund, exactly like Norway, but we don't, because we have criminal communists that give Ukraine $23 billion when we have a housing crisis, and all the crises that are going on right now are 100% to blame. Trudeau is 100, and the Liberals, Carney as well, because he was his advisor, is to blame. And they were all done deliberately. It wasn't an accident. And all you got to do is read his book, Values.
Evil communists in Ottawa trying to kill us all and oppress us and take everything we have and steal it all.
And you don't need to take my word for it. All you got to do is read his book, Values.
Sure.
So before we check out though, remember everybody, if you have a question, you want to kick me in the shin, or you want to ask me something more about stuff, Brandon at suchatime.ca. I'm also on X. So thanks, Rick, for the show.
Thank you, Brandon. You're still my friend. Still love you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Best friends. Absolutely.
Yeah, I have to find something to leave people with here tonight. Well, I don't know. Are you familiar with any of the songs that we end our program with?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Oh, here, I'll tell you this joke. Okay, so this farmer calls the police and says, "Hey, there's 2 criminals breaking into my barn." And the officer says, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. There's no one available. All the cars are out right now." And the farmer says, "Oh," hangs up the phone. Picks up the phone 2 minutes later, calls him and says, "I just shot 2 criminals that were breaking into my barn." 10 minutes later, there's 3 cop cars and a helicopter flying overhead. And the sheriff comes up and says, "I thought you said you had shot the criminals. We just arrested them." He goes, "Yeah, I thought you said there was no officers available."
All right, everybody. I will see you back here tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side.
Monkey see, monkey do. Vladimir Putin's making a fool out of you. Once a deal maker, now just a shouter. Used to shake hands, now it's all about power. You turn your back on your friends and your allies too. You betrayed the spirit of the red, white, and blue. Oh, orange orangutan man, swinging through the world with a heavy hand. Tearing up treaties, slapping on tariffs, throwing tantrums like a billionaire sheriff. Tell it down, don't stop it, man, you beast, you critter. Orange orangutan man. Donald Trump 1.0 had a plan. Now Donald J. Trump 2.0's a wrecking man. Used to make deals, now you just sneer. Ruling through fear, grinning ear to ear. Canada's not for sale, Greenland ain't yours. Gaza's not a playground, quit making wars. Bluffing and puffing with a wig on tight. Acting like a boss, but you lost the fight. The art of the deal, man, that ship sunk. Now it's all about rage and a nuclear funk. Orange orangutan man, swinging through the world with a heavy hand. Tearing up treaties, slapping on tariffs, throwing tantrums like a billionaire sheriff. Dial it down, don't stop it, man, you beast, you critter. Orange orangutan man. You're fired. No, you're just bananas.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.